Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 31. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my congenial friends Jody.
Hello, are you sitting comfortably? Then let us begin.
And Willie.
Wanan ni hao.
Chinese.
Chinese? Mandarin?
Yep, simplified.
Mandarin specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Simplified.
And Joe, what punk rock album starts like that?
It's actually a show from an old, the intro to an old British children's show where they read stories to the kids.
Where do I know it from?
Was the intro to one of the punk rock albums. I don't know.
Oh, man. Was the Sprung Monkey track on Music for Our Mother Ocean?
It must have been. Was that on Good Times? It was the first track on Good Times. That is Sprung Monkey.
I think so. Yeah.
You're right.
That's the only place I know that from.
I'm not convinced at your punk rock repertoire memory. I would like you to put a pin in that and confirm it.
Well, it's in the show now, so I'm going to have to do a callback. Oh, man. How are you guys doing? How are you doing specifically with not reading ahead, considering the chapters we just read?
So hard.
Big struggle, eh? Yeah, I mean, the way our last chapter ends is a real cliffhanger.
No, like I said to you at the reading today, it was so difficult to stop where that chapter stopped because it was just sort of in the middle of nothing. And I was just like, curses!
It's the cliffiest of cliffhangers that we've had in a little while. Especially since that topic has come up a couple times.
Yeah, I remember the last time that we recorded, before we recorded this book. Yes, the finale of the previous book, I said, see you all in the Threefold Land. Finally, we're there. Because I thought we'd be here sooner, but we're here now.
It's taken a little while, hey. Yeah, it's... I mean, I know we talk about the struggle is real, about how hard it is not to read ahead, because we feel that almost every time. And I'm trying to actually savor that feeling, because I'm wary of our not too distant future where that may not be the case. You know, we might finish a couple chapters in, say, book 10 and not necessarily feel like reading another chapter again for another month, let alone 2 weeks' time. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm conscious of how the story at this stage is still barreling ahead and it is pulling us along. And I don't want to speak for you guys, but I guess we're sort of saying this, you know, between the lines, that it is gripping, you know, like shit is happening and stuff is getting revealed. And like, as we will find out in this very episode, like they just shoot ahead very quickly. But more on that later. I'm ready to go. Like I can
Yes,
do away with the preamble completely. Yes, enough of this banter. Let's go ahead. I'll just do one more little thing before we get into the good stuff, and invite you all back to my favorite little corner called Callbacks.
Never gonna cease. Always gonna keep on going.
That's one thing you can rely on this podcast, is a bunch of corrections and callbacks. So I'll try and get through it quickly because we've got some cool stuff to get to. And this is interesting, but not why we're all here. Number one. This is all me. This is pedantry aimed back at myself. In the last episode, I had said that we'd be halfway through the book at this point, but my math was way off. We're 40% done. And we'll be halfway after our next episode.
So about 3 1/4 eighths.
No, it's very easy. The book is 1,000 pages. We're doing 100 pages an episode. So 100 pages, 10 episodes. It's actually very basic math that I still somehow managed to fuck up.
Now, if you follow my example of how to gauge the size of a fish, you're never wrong. It's like 5-pound trout can be yay long.
It's all flexible.
That's why it's all flexible.
It's all relative. I also made a sort of throwaway line last time about, you know, where Semirhage might divulge the fact that she's the one that intervened in Samael's attack on the stone. And I said it might be at the Forsaken Coffee Hour, but it wasn't that specific meeting, which, you know, maybe nobody listening to this cares about, but I feel like I made a mistake, and I will now correct myself and say it wasn't the Forsaken Coffee Hour. But we'll keep our eyes open then for the exact instance where Semirog says that, because I read on multiple sources that it was her intervention in the stone, that the other faction of Trollocs was hers. So now that it's not at the Forsaken Coffee Hour, I don't know exactly where it is, and now I'm kind of doubting whether that's the case. So let's put a big old pin in that one, and when she divulges that information, we can crack a bottle of champagne or something. I know I will.
So you, just to correct you there, you made a statement which you had to put a pin in to bring it back up to put a larger pin into. Like, this is pinception to the max.
So what happened was, last time, there was no pin to be had. I said it matter-of-factly. This time I'm saying, no. We need to pin that one.
All right.
And now it's pinned.
So it's not pinception yet.
It's not pinception. I mean, I'm sure, actually, there's probably episodes already in which we've pinceptioned extensively.
Yes,
multiple
the mattress.
layers.
We laid the mattress to rest.
So, Joe,
Hmm.
when speaking about the access keys for the male and female statues with the crystal spheres, we were sort of talking about how do you pronounce the name of those sa'angreal. And I don't know if I'm just an internet newbie, which I'm probably an internet intermediate, but I couldn't find a pronunciation guide for them at all. So I will continue to call them the Kudenkarl, just like I always have in my head. I'm not going to say Chodenkarl because that sounds too much like chode, which is not the kind of connotation I want to make with those powerful.
What's a chode?
You go do a callback or go research what chode means.
Is it that bad that it can't even be on an R-rated podcast?
It's not that bad, but it's not great.
Just in case your mother listens to this one day. I'm not going to go there.
Well, you've already dropped the C-bomb on you, so I had to give my mom some stern warnings.
Sorry, Morris's mom.
And you're not even Australian, mate.
We were talking about the Kudenkarl because Egwene had, dreamwalked her way into Tanchico, and she was looking through that museum where they had all those artifacts, and she saw that sort of half-made or broken, damaged female version of it. And we were talking about, like, is that the one that Rand has? Does Elayne fix it? And as we find out in these chapters, no, the two access keys are lying very neatly right next to each other in a certain location that we'll get to. But it did sort of make me think, like, okay, so there is a different access key to the female Kudenkarl at the very least. And so I was reading about that, and there's speculation that there are multiples, that there are not just 2 or 3, but these in the whole series are the only ones that you ever hear about. The 2 that Rand finds and this broken one in Tanchico. So there might be more, but not in this series of books.
Makes sense to have backups, if you're going to have such a huge sa'angreal that's so important.
Well, this one broke, so yeah.
Yeah,
it was good to have a backup.
I know many things about cars and not a lot of things about the rest of things in life, but all cars come with spare keys, and you're able to code multiple keys to new cars, so up to 6. So it makes sense that there's a big thing of that high value and high power, that there's multiple access keys.
Totally. They should put one of those little things where if you clap or whistle, it makes a sound so you can find it.
You can't find your access keys. You can just
to the most powerful sa'angreal in the world. Probably should be taken off you. We were speculating about whether Elayne could maybe fix that one. Is that the one that she gets, that Rand uses later because Elayne fixed it? But I went and I checked, and Elayne can make ter'angreal or ungreal, and she can duplicate ungreal, but she can't fix them. Once they're broken, they are busted up. Willie, you made a comment about the White Tower and their proclivity for torture when you were talking about, like, why didn't they send Joy and Amika? It's a pity they couldn't send them to the tower so they could torture the true plots out of them, because, look what they did to Rand in the box. And, that I thought this was the case, but I went and I double checked, and Galena, who is the Aes Sedai that is predominantly responsible for Rand's torture, is Black Ajah.
Don't speak her name.
Galena Caspan. Nah.
So I stand by my statement of, like, I don't think the tower would have been torturing anyone. Not Not as directly. Maybe torture by pot scrubbing.
Maybe I'm a dark friend. You never know. Do I walk
I do
in the
know,
light?
and you are.
There's three of us. The odds are high that at least one of us is a dark friend. And it's clearly
Yeah.
Willie. I mean, we're kidding.
Clearly. Here's another one from me. I said that the world of the Finns, isn't it called Solheim? No, it's not Solheim. It's Sindhol, which is in the old tongue breaks down to the words never and land, which was a direct nod from Robert Jordan to Neverland from the Peter Pan series. And Solheim in Norwegian means realm of the sun. So I think there might have been some Norse mythology stuck in my head from playing God of War or something. That's why Solheim just spilled out.
Sounds cool.
It's Sindal. We were also talking about Matt's deaths, right? So the elfin gave Matt that message about him having to die, and we were sort of wondering, like, which death are they talking about? Him hanging from the tree, or are they talking about him getting balefied by Ravine in Camelin? And the sort of general consensus is that it is actually the hanging from the tree that is the death that they're referring to, because the death in Camelin is technically undone by the balefire, so he never died.
Okay, well, it's how I had it first, and then the internet, like it often does, misguided me. It's
well, I mean, it's a valid reason. He does die before Rand balefires Ravine. Matt is dead, and so is Avienda. They both die there. Then lots of stuff from the Finns, obviously, last time. So I definitively went to go try and find out what did Moiraine ask the Finns, because we were talking to, they tell us something about Thom and Willie. I quite liked your rationale of the fact that Moiraine wouldn't ask something specifically about Thom or her own personal future with such a precious sort of set of questions that could, shape the future of the world and the pattern itself. But then we thought maybe they had said something that sort of alluded to Thom, but turns out you never actually know what she asked. It's never revealed.
You can only speculate in this way, and that way your headcanon is whatever you want it to be. I love it.
Yes. So Rand's questions were the following. How do I cleanse the taint from Sidin? Which is... it's answered in another riddle, which goes, what is unlike attracts, what is like cancels. Use the one to absorb the other. That's the answer from the Finns. Thanks, guys. And
clear as day.
And Rand actually relays this to Herod Fell. Do you remember that scholar when Rand sets up a university later in the series? There's a really
Tairen or
smart
right?
guy. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. But yeah, Rand tasks him with trying to solve that riddle, and he sort of helps Rand unpick what that could mean. And Rand comes up with his theory, which in the end does work, which is pretty great. Rand's second question is, how can I win the last battle and survive? And the answer from the Finns is, the north and the east must be as one. The west and the south must be as one. The two must be as one. To live, you must die. Thanks, guys. Again.
Useless.
So, it basically comes down to Rand having to unite half the world and the other half of the world to be sort of united by the Seanchan, and then Rand and the Seanchan having to act as one in the final battle is basically what that sort of north and east and south and west comes to. And then Rand having to die to live is not really clear direction from them, but it is what actually happens. Like Rand's body dies, but his consciousness lives on in the body of Moradin. And then in the third question, I don't think is ever expressly said in the books, but in Robert Jordan's notes. So like, here's a real juicy tidbit for us is Rand asked, how can I destroy the Dark One? And the answer to that is, what was, is, and will be. To choose is the fate of your kind. Without choice, humankind is dust. Not exactly IKEA-style clear instructions on how to destroy the Dark One, but, maybe we'll look at that again in depth when the final battle comes, when we do it in, 3.5, 4, 5 years, however long it takes us to get there. But it'll be interesting to hold this answer up to what actually transpires there, because I mean, I remember what happened. I'm not going to just spoil it here for Villy, because Villy has obviously not read it, but we can. I don't have a clear enough correlation between this answer and what I remember happening, which is also foggy, to go into it too much here. But it's cool to know what Rand's questions were.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. What we can say about this is, can we at this point accept that Matt is a stronger Tairen than Rand? So much so that he not only got clear answers from these snake-like people, but he got extra answers, where Rand got 3 riddles.
No.
I tried.
With a shot, Villy.
you got to throw these out there.
I mean, that's what we count on you for, right? Like the most outlandish theories that we can conjure up. But I mean, you never see the level of Tairen randomness around Matt that you do Rand. You know, the fish silverpike falling face first in a perfect circle and pegging into the mud in Tyr, and like the vast number of weddings and murders and stuff that seem to follow Rand in his wake. But I mean, the fact that Matt got those extra answers is huge, right? Like, it's probably safe to say that it had never happened before.
I think it's just because Matt is just way more annoying than anyone else who's ever gone through that doorway. and why.
Just cocky enough to like demand answers as they're tossing him out, you know, like they're just like, fine, whatever, just get out.
No.
Rand probably would have been a lot more respectful.
Yeah. Fuck yours. Give me another answer. I had enough of this.
The rules in Sindal that we were talking about, because I was trying to figure out if Rand whipping out his flame sword on that side of, because remember he backs out of the gateway holding his flame sword, if that would have angered them somehow. That's why I asked specifically, is it light or flame? But it is light. It's iron, a musical instrument, and a source of light, which a flame technically is. And then also the rhyme in the sort of the times of Rand, I keep wanting to say the modern times, but you know, in their super modern times, way in the future, there is a sort of rhyme that I think people say when they play Snakes and Foxes or something, that goes, courage to strengthen, fire to blind, music to dazzle, iron to bind. So Rand's flaming sword definitely would have caused a bit of a stir, but maybe kept them at bay for him to get out safely.
I think it would have caused a kerfuffle, Moritz. Yes.
One hell of a kerfuffle. Robert Jordan has confirmed that Thom is definitely not Elayne's dad.
Boo.
Because I think his answer was quite vehement, and I think it was specifically to avoid the possibility of any kind of incestuous flirting and stuff there, because their sort of interactions do take on a weird tinge at some point. And if it was his daughter, it would have been a George R.R. Martin style interaction.
Or a George Lucas style. Luke, that's your sister, buddy.
Those Georges love a bit of incest. Immediately alienates all listeners named George. There's an animal in the waste when Egwene goes there that she says looks like a boar but isn't quite a boar. I was thinking at the time, I couldn't come up with a name, which is shameful for South Africa, but there's a warthog, right?
Warthog, vlakvark.
Surely. I also came up with the Afrikaans name first. Vlakvark. What is that in English again? God damn it. But yeah, that's what I think it was. We asked if Gawain and Elayne are twins. They're not. Gawain is Elayne's senior by 2 years. And then when listening to our last episode, I feel like we may have glossed over this thing, and you guys might have a crystal clear idea of this in your head, and I think that I did as well. We didn't spend any time on it, and I did want to just revisit it, you know, in classic callback fashion, to sort of throw light on Thom's genius. The plot between that love triangle that Thom was sort of interfering with. The married couple is High Lord Theodosian, married to High Lady Altima. And I think it's worth going over this because all the stuff comes up again in this section, right? Like all the background. But Altima is sleeping with Carleon. So she's having an affair. Thom forges a note from Carleon leaving it for Tadosian to find, spilling the beans, saying, I think your husband is onto us. And that's when Tadosian kills Carlion in a hunting accident, because he's found this note from Thom that makes him think his wife is cheating on him, which she is.
Correctly so.
And that's why Ultima is pissed off, because she actually had feelings for Carlion. And that's why she's poisoning Tadosian. But not to death. Just a slow poison, like a slow torture. And we'll find out
slow
here.
burn.
And we'll slow puncture. We'll find out here what the developments are in that little love triangle. Well, I guess not so much a triangle anymore, with one of the corners gone.
There's no love there anymore.
No. But Tadosian ultimately survives, and he actually features, I wouldn't say prominently, but he plays a role later in the story again. So he actually survives this whole ordeal. Can't remember about Ultima, but we'll find out soon enough. Or maybe not. Okay, that is the end of callbacks. So, usually this previously on Blood and Ashes section is real quick. It's like half a page of notes. That's how much shit went down in the last episode. Like, remember how it was just like every chapter was just jumping. There was like a lots of short chapters. We did 8 chapters, and like a lot of them jump from one group to the next. So this is me trying to quickly summarize what happened last time. Egwene meets Amis in Teleran Riyadh and is summoned to the Waste to learn about being a dreamer. The girls tell Moiraine that Egwene will be going to the Waste, while Nynaeve and Elayne will be going to Tanchico. Moiraine tells them that Amiko and Joya have been murdered, and that she's received a letter from the Wise Ones ordering Avienda to return to the Waste. Matt and Perrin hear about the White Cloak invasion in the Two Rivers, and Perrin decides to go home, while Matt decides to stay with Rand. Well, he doesn't decide. He's compelled, basically, by his Taveren nature. Like, the pattern just won't let him go. Can't even say it, like you said, Willie. Like, he can't even utter the words. Berelain tries to seduce Perrin, and Perrin uses Berelain's advantages as a tool to push Fail away in order to protect her. Instead, Fail confronts Berelain and tricks Loyal into taking her to the Ways, forcing Perrin and Gaul to follow in a ridiculous arrangement. But Perrin needs Loyal to guide him home via the Ways. Matt, Rand, and Moiraine all enter the stone doorway to the Finns, and Matt is told he must go to Ruidian or die. Lan gives Nynaeve a fiery goodbye. Moiraine coerces Thom into accompanying the girls to Tanchico. Min is hiding in plain sight in the tower, and she sees a Loghain vision hinting at future glory, despite the fact that he's been gentled. Swan finally gets word that Rand has Kalandor, finally, like weeks after Suroth. Sarah is killed by an Aes Sedai who questions her about Min. Perrin, Gaul, Fail, Bane, Chayad, and Loyal enter the Ways, and a loud noise and quakes are felt by a number of the characters. Nynaeve and Elayne on the boat with the Windfinders, Perrin, and the rest of that crew in the stables before they set off for the Dragonwall Gate. And as expected, we find out in this stretch exactly where that sound came from. So, with all of that housekeeping done, let's get into the good shit. Chapter 19 is called The Wave Dancer. Take it away, Willie.
Yes, indeed, I will. So, our girls, Elayne and Nynaeve, are in a black lacquered carriage, and they are speeding on their way down through the mall to the docks, as they have got to board a fast vessel to get them to Tanchico. Now, the black lacquered coach or carriage, I don't know what the best word is for it, is unmarked. So no noble house is willing to associate themselves with Aes Sedai. It's like unmarked, nondescript. It's like they're in an unmarked police van being transported. Elayne gets out, knuckles her back, and still tries to act like a lady. It was a rough ride. However, Nynaeve gets out and gives the poor carriage driver all hell for doing essentially what he was asked to do, to get there with haste. In acknowledgement, when making up for Nynaeve's harsh words, Elayne doubles the quantity of silver that she gives him, and also gives him a really kind word after, and sort of hitting again on Nynaeve, like, you know what? Sometimes a kind word actually gets more done than a harsh word. Now, the ship at the end of the dock, they make their way, get onto the gangplank, and now we meet the Athamira. How badly have I mispronounced that?
The Athanmir.
Athan Amir.
Something like that.
Athanmir? Yeah.
I'm
Anyway.
not looking at the word. I'm just reciting what I've always said in my head, and it's probably way off. How about you, Joe? You have a go.
Sea folk. There you go.
Sea folk. Oh, well, you got to... I want to try and be in the... Yeah, Athanmir. So dark-skinned people. Question. Are they dark-skinned by cultural differences? Or are they just really suntanned for working topless in the sun all the time?
I think it's the first one.
I find that in the story in general, that kind of distinction is always made quite vaguely. It's in very rare cases that they'll say, I mean, Tion has a couple descriptions that make her sound like she looks like an African, right?
Like very dark.
Yes. I think Semirog as well. But those are the only two characters that I can think of that have always clearly been, that dark-skinned in my mind. I think it's purposefully done to not draw too much attention.
Okay.
It's almost like the sword forms. Like there's no detail given, very very little detail given about it. It leaves it up to the reader.
It tickles my fancy when I read something that with so little emphasis makes me think. But that's why I thought, like, if you ever meet a sailor who is on the water, you get sunburned from all angles. And more so the fact that they are shirtless, as we'll learn. But I'll let it be there. The men are clean shaven, so no burly beards. They've got straight black hair and tattoos on their hands, and a variety of tattoos. Gold or silver chains around their necks, so they've got nice heavy big chains, and some of them've got rings through the ears, and there's some of them even have like multiples or even polished stones in them, which I'd like to envision as a diamond that they got somewhere, because we don't hear much about diamonds unless Kalandor's a diamond sword, like in Minecraft, which should make me happy.
Just when you thought the podcast couldn't get any nerdier.
Yep. Baggy pants, as you can, like even in a cartoon sailor, sort of a baggy up, tied up below the knee or like just below the knee type of thing, and all barefoot. And we're
MC Hammer, got it.
Yeah. Now you got the Hammer Time stuck in my head, man.
Can't touch this.
So some of the women who are on the deck, and the only big difference at the moment with the women is they're wearing colorful blouses that almost seems out of place, but we'll get there, have got rings in their nose as well. So Elayne notices two women that is at the stern deck, and they obviously look out of place but still in place in the sense that they are wearing green and blue. And as apart from having now 4 rings, the one woman in each ear, they also had a nose ring with a chain that runs from the ear to the nose with several medallions on it, which is pretty badass. I like that. Seen in some cultures. And then they have their necklaces, as the men do, golden chains, but they also have a little finely intricate woven golden box type, what would you call it, pendant, I suppose, that has got, obviously, I don't know, smelly salts or perfume or, I don't know, opium, you never know, that they...
Potpourri.
Cocaine.
That they... that they frequently sniff on. And the women aren't the only ones wearing those. But I thought maybe perhaps that it's not all of them, that it's maybe sort of a sign of status in the hierarchy, perhaps. The other woman that's standing there is dressed in blue. She's got 6 earrings, so 3 in each ear. She's got the same chain with less medallions on her face and the same intricate little box that's woven around her necklace, and have got tattoos on their hands. And the 2 women have got tattoos of stars and birds and waves and very seagoing type tattoos. But immediately Elayne picks up something strange. Like, she doesn't know what it is, but oh no, she knows what it is. There's no tiller at the stern deck, and they're like, "Ooh, how's this?" But instead, there's a big spoked wheel in the middle of the stern deck. So obviously, we know what it is. It's not a little river barge that just needs to be corrected a little bit. This is a proper rudder and steering system on a big ocean-going vessel. Nynaeve then decides, okay, cool. She's looking for the sales mistress. They get showed the way. That is the two women that's standing on the stern deck, and they go up the stairs/ladder. So there's a lot of emphasis here on the boat talk versus land talk. Stairs, ladder, floor, deck. There's going to be a lot of boat talk. I love it. I love boats. So the woman in green introduces herself saying she is, how badly I'm going to screw this one up, Quene?
That was pretty bad.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's coin with an E.
Yeah, that's it.
Queenie.
Queenie.
Coinage. Man, it's a hard one. That Dinjubai, Wild Winds, she's the sales mistress of the Wave Dancer. So very good formal introduction. The woman in blue, who's much younger, or is she? Introduces herself as, or has been introduced as, Juilin Dinjubai, White Wing, Blood, my sister Blood, and the Windfinder of the Wave Dancer. Nynaeve then, before that, had their full introductions that they had. She's Nynaeve Amira from Aes Sedai of the Green Ajah. Somehow they all chose themselves to be Green Ajah, the same with Elayne. And but for Elayne, the strange thing that I was alluding to earlier, not the tiller not being there, is that Juilin reminds her of Avinda. Like, she doesn't know what it is, but there's something that pulls her towards her, which will eventually snap into place a little bit later on. And then I wanted to mention, and going back to the barefoot, all of them are barefoot, including the sales mistress and the Windfinder. So it sort of made me think, in April of this year, I went on a dive charter. And the minute we got on the boat, the captain announced that this is a barefoot vessel. So for the remainder of the sail, of the multiple days that we were on the Barrier Reef diving, you were not allowed to wear even fish flops. It's barefoot only. So it's okay, cool. People go barefoot because you don't slip is number one thought. So it got me reading into sailing histories. And there's a massive division, and there's no conclusion to this fact other than it is the captain's preference. It doesn't make sense wearing shoes with leather soles in wet weather because leather gets slimy and slippery. So you would slide, but it doesn't, even though the argument is that there's enough slots in wooden decks to not slip, to be able to grab a foothold. And the only conclusion I can come to is that it's either a barefoot boat or it's not. Because
probably a lot of tradition and stuff tied up with it as well. So like maybe in the past it was more slippery, but it's just, in modern times it doesn't make sense. But it's one of those, like sailing and seafaring is rife with tradition and superstition even, that stuff is always associated with sailing. I mean, port and starboard, like why are we still calling it that?
Port,
it's
starboard, bow, stern. It's just what it is. It's boat talk.
Maybe, for climbing, rigging and stuff, maybe barefoot, allows you better grip when you're sticking your feet through nets and climbing tall sail masts and that sort of thing.
No, it was just interesting for me in that aspect. I love these little things that make me dwell off longer than I should and then stick on the story.
Love a tangent.
Nynaeve then asked if she can obviously talk of sailing and ports and gift of passage, which is sort of the formal way to announce yourself on the boat to the sales mistress to then get. So the price of passage is usually sort of an equivalent in the form of a gift for your being allowed on the boat. And now in this instance, we'll get a little bit ahead of the story, is Moiraine gave them 2 letters of rights, each to, and I believe each, because they don't specify that each is the same, but I think they said they're equal in value, of 3,000 golden crowns, which is a fuck ton of money. Anyway, so that is the payment that they have, and both of them sort of questioned and wondered, why on earth would we need so much money to get a bloody taxi ride to Tanchico? It's just up the coast. It's far, but not that expensive far. But we'll get there. They are then said, okay, cool, let's go to the cabin. We'll sit and have a formal talk. And they go through to the stern deck quarters, which is nice and tidy. You know, the chairs are bolted, the tables bolted to the floor for obvious reasons for ocean-going vessels. You got to sort of open the handle and slide into the chair. But as they walk in, they see all kinds of intricate things that these traders have collected along their way. And Elayne spots a Sunshine helmet on one of the things, and she's gotten like a visceral reaction to it, like, what is this? And it draws the conversation. Oh, like, you know this? And she's like, yes, this is Sunshine. It's like, yeah, they had a run-in with them on the water, which was turned into quite a heated battle, but they managed to escape and sink their vessel.
Chalk one up for the good guys.
Yeah, finally. So they start the talks of passage, and they sit down. And firstly, Quen wants to know what is the port where they want to go. Coin. I can't call it coiny. Coiny would have an asterisk on the E. Or like, really, I'm trying hard here. So she says, well, look, we were planning to sail from here to Mayenne, and we have all our trades planned according to that. But what do you, and she slides the envelope or the letter across, and she opens it to see that this is not just asking for the price. I could buy a fleet with this payment, which makes her think a hell of a lot more of the situation. Nynaeve at this point gets stroppy. She is now... Elayne has asked her, keep your tact. This is not the wagon driver. Like, come on. But yeah, she held it for all of 5 minutes. And she's like, well, if you can't take us, well, let us know. And what is the price? And blah, blah, blah. Like, typical Nynaeve. Coinage, now see now, Jody. Now I'm saying coiny.
Coinage.
It's worked. Inception.
She changes the discussion, like stops almost the discussion there and changes it to Rand. And she asks if it's true, and the Nynaeve and Elayne sort of informs her that yes, he's taken the sword that can't be touched. He is proclaimed as the Dragon Reborn. He's the Dragon Reborn by the prophecies. It's what's happening. And she listens to this and says, well, there's a Jedi prophecy, and starts explaining to them the story of the Jedi prophecy and the coming of the Koramor, that will have Aes Sedai serve him. He will be the breaker of the tower in two. I like that. And Aes Sedai will wash his feet and dry it with their hair. And of course, Nynaeve loses his shit at that. Like, Rand will never have me dry his feet with my hair.
Is that a Bible reference?
I felt the same, because who was it? Was it a prophet or Jesus that had his feet washed and dried by one of the
Marys?
They used their hair, though.
They did.
No, they did. Yeah,
oh, really?
They used their hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What sort of Christian home did you grow up in, Jody?
Not a very good one, apparently.
So Quen at this stage looks at her sister Juilin.
It's different every time. There's 10 people in the room.
Yeah. If I say every type of neighbor that I think I can do it, I can't be wrong. I've got to be right somewhere along the line. And possibly all of them wrong. But yeah, she looks at her sister Juilin, and Juilin gives her the nod and say, yeah, And we'll get to why this is, that the decision is kind of up to the Windfinder. But at that point, Toram, her, her husband, sort of barges in wearing spectacles. And Elayne has never seen spectacles. Like, what is this thing? Like, they know that glasses are made in far different places, good quality glass, but not tied to a wire around one's eyes. Like, what witchcraft is this? But he's got his spectacles, looking at his orders, and he's like, I can get 500 fox pelts for 3 barrels of Two Rivers to back. Obviously, the Two Rivers story of them getting surrounded by the White Cloaks and trade going to be bad has upped the price through the roof on the tobacco from the area. And he's just too excited to get this deal done. Then he notices that his wife obviously has got company, and then he apologizes profusely. And she then says, no, well, look, we sail, and announces to him first, we sail, and I mean to sail before sunset on the ocean. So wrap up your trading because we're moving. And he's like, well, my wife, where are we sailing to? He had plans to keep on trading. He's got his bows filled with cargo and goods meant for this trip. She's like, no, we're going to Tanchico, which is the complete opposite direction. And he kind of has a little tiff. He loses it a little bit. But she's like, yeah, am I the sales mistress? And are you the cargo master? So she puts him squarely in his place. And he's like, hand to heart, I obey. And not happy, but he goes out the door. And she's like, well, I'm going to have to make that up to him. But then again, the making up can be so pleasurable. And I was like, yeah, snap. That's a good one. Wow. And then they get back to the discussion and say, all right, we are happy to take you guys. And then Nynaeve asks, okay, but what in terms of the gift? What is the value that needs to, at that point, quite stroppily, what is the payment? Should it be more? She passes the letter back and says, Juilin at this stage says, no, we're doing this for the Koramor. It is what we have to do. Where Coen says that she will, and asks that they keep it secret because of superstition on the boat, that Aes Sedai are unlucky, and also ask them to remove their rings, which they both, for the first time, Nynaeve is not even stroppy. Elayne is the one that's more hesitant to remove a serpent ring, but they both immediately remove it and say absolutely, and that they sort of limit their time on deck. They sort of stay in your quarters more. Let's just let things take the natural course. And Coin will herself pay out of her own pocket the money to the sort of the holding, the cargo master, for the losses. And she's like, no, we're doing this for our prophecy because things are starting to fall in place. He is the one we seek. And this is quite important. So they make the agreement, and they said later on they'll drink honey wine and bath together. I still want to see Nynaeve get naked and bath with the girls, but they will laugh together and cry together, and they'll get that done. And that's it. They then, as they're speaking about bathing and whining together, thunderous shake, and the boat is like lurched as if going up a wave, and smashes into the dock, and probably the bow of the boat smashes on the bottom of the river. And they're like, oh, we got to go and run and see if our boat is okay. And Elaine's already like, Rand, what the fuck did you do now? But in the back of her mind, she knows exactly what he's read her letter that she wrote him. And I
hope it's not my letter.
It probably is the letter that she wrote. And that is the end of that chapter.
Yeah, our first real look at the sea folk, eh?
Oh, love
Another power structure dominated by women.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Again, Robert Jordan does a lot of, this book is very heavily focused on the women, because I hear there's if you follow the groups online, you're on Twitter, and there's a lot of discussion about this, about the gender roles. And he does well to make sure that, like, a lot of the power structures are women, but then they're always naked for some reason. Whenever they have to do something, they have to bath together naked. They have to run into Ruidian naked.
Well, most
they
people
have to...
bath naked.
I mean, together with strangers you just met is what I'm trying to suggest.
I think it's very
Hey
progressive.
man, have you ever been in a
Yes.
men's bathhouse in like the Eastern Bloc
Turkey?
countries?
No.
They're all
Pass.
naked.
The men bath together, naked.
Mm.
Not in the same bath, but in Feldara, or where is it?
Yeah.
Some place they sit in copper baths, and Lan gives Matt
It was
a dirty look
Feldara.
when Matt's talking about the horn.
But you'll see later in the other chapters, it's only that's that having to get your kit off to perform some ceremony is strictly for the women, not for the men.
Yeah, in this stretch. Yeah.
What I will sort of highlight in sort of the thinking of the writing of the book, I don't think it is obviously meant directly for it being sort of a matriarchal system in all avenues, but because of the taint and because of men not being able to channel, and women with the gift of channeling living so much more extended lives of wisdom, that it's only a natural progression that all the systems to become matriarchal. Probably mispronounced that as well. A matriarchaic.
A matriarchy.
Matriarchies, but a system that is run by women. So it's not, and I think people read too deep into it.
And the general distrust of men, right? Like, men are the ones that broke the world. Men are the ones that, if they channel, they're a problem. It's, I think it's a natural progression. I mean, Jody, what you said is also totally true. I mean, the women are getting naked for accepted tests for literally anything at the drop of the hat. They have to get naked. But I think that the political and governing structures that are established and are all featuring women are, I think, like you said, Phil, a direct result of this sort of centuries long distrust of men who can channel, and that just extends to men in general.
I don't think they get naked that often. Like, they go through the accepted test and exactly the same in Ruidian, which is maybe if you wear clothes you get smothered, burned or something. We don't know.
Let's see in this episode when we go to Ruidian who gets naked and who doesn't.
No, we see that. No doubt about that. But the Athamir, Tha'anmir, they are just sailors who like to sail with the wind in their chest.
Nipples. I like the wind in my nipples. It's lovely.
I mean, so do I. Who doesn't?
I did miss out on that chapter about
love a windy nipple.
Introduction of the bare-breastedness when Durrell was her name, I think, came in with the tea, and she already had her blouse off to the shock of Elayne and Nynaeve, and she got a good word for changing her garb before Lan was out of sight. But she was new to the vessel, so she's
to work the bilges for 3 days or something.
3 days, and then only she can come up and form back to the normal side of things, because these other people on the mainland, they don't get our ways.
But that's equality. I mean, the men are shirtless, the women are shirtless. This is typical in African tribes as well. The women don't wear any clothes above the waist. I mean, but the men, the same thing. So that's not an issue. It's just like the specific moments in their initiations and ceremonies that it comes up a lot. Enough about gender. Let's talk about race. Why don't you? Moritz,
check all the boxes.
Check all the boxes. I just had a thought when you were describing the sea folk and talking about, like, are they dark skinned or whatever, and then that description only just hit me right now. Dark skin, straight black hair, their names like Wild Wings and White Wing, and I was like, is that not more Native American then? Like that's that kind of dark skin with a straight black hair.
The naming certainly
and
leans
the naming
in that
really
direction,
just went bling. It just hit me right now.
Yes, but the tattoos on the hands sort of made my head go a different direction.
Polynesian.
Polynesian. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a combination.
All the races in these books are mixes, right?
Yeah.
Like there's bits and pieces taken from a whole bunch of them specifically to make them not, a straight analog for any one nation. in our current world.
And this is historically proven as well because of the breaking. I mean, the whole world got shattered and everyone spread everywhere and everybody intermixed afterwards for thousands of years. There's not like one nation that has one type of race.
Is it in
Like
this chapter that you hear about the Atho and Mir sort of like during the breaking getting on the ships and sailing away
Yes.
from the mainland and sort of surviving on the seas and then never really quite returning again? Like they just made their home?
There's a lot of information in this chapter. I mean, that description there is the breaking happened and they clung to whatever they could and they hit for the oceans. And they only settled once it became calm after the whole breaking. And their life since has been on the ocean. They say the salt runs in their veins, almost like the Ironborn.
Well, they have to be born on the water.
Born on the water. So if a woman
even if
is
they're at a city,
on
like
land,
they have to get into a rowboat or something, they have to
Row
go
out.
get on the water to give birth. Yeah.
So like they're
cool.
hardy, salty sail rats. Not sail rats, just sailors.
Sail rats.
Loving Elayne here and her attitude towards the sort of the peasants and the common folk, chiding Nynaeve for treating them so roughly, giving the guy a kind word, saying a kind word often goes as well or if not better than silver itself. They'll take the silver gladly, but the kind word often seems to go a bit further. She also notices right in the beginning how poorly the Tairen lords had treated the commoners, because everyone's sort of walking with like stooped shoulders and downcast eyes and that sort of thing, where not even in Camelin would she expect to see that sort of thing. Like there people sort of venerate the royalty because they are more, I don't know, just more charitable, I guess, and more personable generally than the High Lords, who we now in this read through have really cemented in my mind as a bunch of assholes.
For sure.
I mean, how did I not notice this before?
Totally, eh? Well, I mean, that's true for so many things that we've spoken about in the
That's
past,
true.
like so in your
true.
face. But yeah, like Tyr is the worst place to be a peasant. If you're going to be a peasant,
sounds like it.
Don't go to Tyr. Be from somewhere else.
Funny that all the girls pick the green Ajah as their fake Ajah.
Mm-hmm.
Elaine's the only one that becomes a green.
Well, Egwene would, but Destiny has other plans for her.
I quite enjoyed the arrangement of the seating at the table. Both Nynaeve and Elayne sit. It's a rectangular table with the two sea folk at either end, and Nynaeve and Elayne sit on the same side of the table. And Elayne realizes while they're talking that it makes them, when one of the sea folk is talking, they both have to look to the end of the table. So they're turning their heads completely away from the other one, who can then observe them or even signal the other sea folk person without any of the other people at the table noticing. Which is it's very clever. It's like a cool little detail that I think is great. I enjoyed the sea folk name for the Dark One, Father of Storms. I love how like the wolves and the different nations all have their own names for stuff. Like there is so much cool little detail in every sort of culture.
I wonder if that's where Brandon Sanderson got it, the Stormfather, from.
I immediately thought of that. Yeah.
Billy, there's your next set of
But this
books
one
to
is
read.
much more magnanimous and benevolent. She also says to the cell mistress, does she say to the Windfinder, who is her sister, something along the lines of, okay, and then your next port of call will be Chachin or Camelin, like sort of, I think she was making fun of something she was saying. And obviously I know where Camelin is, but I was like, where's Chachin? And it's the capital of Kandor, which is also landlocked. So I think the expression she was using was sort of like, without me, you wouldn't get anywhere. Maybe it was her husband she was chiding or something, but it just comes, it's this weird offhanded thing that she says, but I bet you it's like a sea folk saying, like that's something that you would say like, oh yeah, cool, your next port of call is going to be some, landlocked country or city.
Whether they were going after Mayin to Sarah?
Yeah.
To Shara. Yeah.
Shara.
Couple mentions of Shara here, like that's where silk comes from. Could be where old mate got his specs from. Only the sea folk go there, and the Aiel, I think.
And they don't get in behind the walls. Like
there's one small section that they can get into, and nothing beyond. And anyone that's ever gone beyond there has never returned.
Because life's too rad in there. They don't want to leave.
And nobody wants to leave. Yeah, it's a huge party behind the walls.
Okay, anything else?
Now, look, these chapters have got, in terms of story plot line, not they do this, they do this, they do this, and that's the outcome. But you are introduced to such new cultures that there's so many little things, like almost short of reading it word by word. We aren't just going to squeeze everything in. It's like there's so much. It's so
there is
good.
a lot. Between like the Seafolk cultural info dump that we get here, again later, the Aiel, same thing happens. And then in one of the chapters I'm doing, Moraine's sort of inner dialogue, we've got a lot of sort of exposition and insight coming our way. So let's forge ahead then to chapter 20, which is called Winds Rising. Jody, take it away.
Will do. We pick up now after the big kerfuffle, and the ship is all bouncing around. That the sea folk are already out of their chairs and up on deck, but Elayne gets stuck because the chairs have little latches. The armrests are latches, so you can get stuck in them. So you don't get chucked out when you're at sea, which is a clever little detail. And Elayne and Nynaeve have to scramble then up the ladder. Really, it's the ladder onto the deck after them. And when they get to the top, the harbor is still undulating and the ships are pitching and the swells, like shit has gone down. And they obviously look towards the stone because it's obviously Rand, right? It was Rand who did this. A lot of people are talking on deck about earthquakes and stuff. They're like, no, trust us. We know who did this. But they look up at the stone and everything is normal. There's some startled birds flying around the top, but the banner is flying. So whatever happened, it's done. It's over with. So there's no sign of anything wrong, but everyone, of course, blames Rand for it. So Nynaeve notes then that Thom and Juilin are standing on the dock, looking up at them. Now Villy's got in my head, I'm going to call her Queen. Comes up to Nynaeve and Elayne to report that, look, it's all cool. The ship's all right. There's no damage. We can sail, because the girls are thinking like, man, if Rand stuffed our ship up so that we can't go, this is going to be even worse. But no, it's all cool. Everything is okay. And that Thom and Juilin have requested passage. Thom says he wants to go to Tanchico specifically, and Juilin to wherever the women are going. Queen says she'll refuse them passage if Nynaeve and Egwene request it, but she's not keen to break with this custom. So they are already breaking. They've already decided downstairs, and they think they're going to break with some customs, but there's limits. They don't want to break everything in one day. And also, she knows Juilin, Queen, that is. He's done some thief catching for her in the past, and he's an honorable man. He gets the job done. It's like everyone knows Juilin, right?
And apparently very efficiently as well.
Yeah.
Like she mentions that he was really good at it.
Yeah. And that's everyone's opinion of him. So he is he's a good dude to have on board. So if you do agree, let's they're going to be happy to have him. So Nynaeve and Elayne, they head down to the docks to have a chat with the two men. And this is, Elayne can't shake the feeling that she knows Thom. She's looking at him and going like, I know this dude from somewhere. But, she goes over to talk to Juilin first, and she reminds him that, listen, you say you want to come with us, but the last time that we worked together, you betrayed us. And Julian's like, technically the last time was with Matt when we busted your butts out of prison. And she's like, and Nynaeve's giving a huffing behind her, like, technically speaking. So he's not to be pushed around. And there's also a little point there. She mentions that like Julian's eyes are like darting, and he looks down at their fingers and notices they're missing rings. And she's like, "This guy sees everything, man. He's like fucking Batman. Yeah. He doesn't miss a clue."
Yeah.
So it turns out that Lan had come to get him on behalf of Rand like an hour ago, ripped him out of his bed, and dumped a bunch of gold in his hand, and said, "Look, Rand has given me this gold, and tells you now that you got to go with them both." Nynaeve and Elayne. I think Rand wanted to make that clear. Of course, they're speaking in code on the dock. And he's saying, a shepherd, a mutual friend of ours, the shepherd, and the stone-faced man, which is obviously Lan. Yeah. All right. They're both surprised about this. Don't know why, but anyway. Apparently, Elayne had left 2 letters with Rand that should have had some effect. I don't know what was in these letters precisely. We find out a bit later on. I don't know, Moritz, in your chapter, perhaps?
No, not in this
No?
stretch, not specifically, but I got the sense because she speaks about the first letter in
Yeah.
our previous episode, right? Like where she was saying, I can't believe I gave him that letter, and then by the end of it, she's like, I'm pretty sure I can still quickly find a pen and paper and write him another letter. And
Yeah.
the comment Rand does make about it in this stretch of chapters is that he can't believe those 2 letters came from the same person. He's like, what the fuck is going on? I don't get this woman. I don't understand.
The dudes have no idea.
99% of men out there trying to figure out women and how their minds work.
From Mars and Venus, dude. Like, we're all in the same boat. I totally get what you're saying. No need to elaborate. I mean, Elayne even says, yeah, maybe I should have sent him a third letter. Like, God, no, woman. That would have just made things worse. Yeah. So anyway, Tom's there because Moiraine asked him specifically. And it's difficult to deny a request from an Aes Sedai, especially if you're in love with her. So anyway, but they're both like, listen, we have some skills that'll be useful. Like Tom's got knowledge of Tanchico. He knows all the best inns. He knows all the best pubs, where you can go get a cool drink. Juilin does a little swirl of his bamboo staff. Like, look, yeah, I'm a good thief catcher and I can kick some ass if necessary as well. So it'd be useful to have you guys, to have us with you. So while Tom's busy explaining all of his usefulness, Elayne just reaches up and tugs on his mustache. Super weird.
So weird, Elayne.
Whoa, dude. Of course, he's taken aback by it. And she's immediately embarrassed. And she's like, oh, so sorry. I don't know what got over me. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. Wasn't that weird? Liar. So anyway, they both agree. I mean, this is Nynaeve and Elayne. But they're going to let these 2 guys accompany them, on the condition that they do as they are told. The women are in charge. Julian's like, as you command, my lady. And Tom's like, Gleeman are free spirits. We don't do, we don't like to follow. And she's like, and Nynaeve's like, listen, you better do as I say. This is the only way. So he's like, fine. He doesn't call her my lady. He just says Nynaeve, but fine. Okay, they both relent. He's not as formal, but he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll do it because I promised Moiraine. So it's really nothing you're going to do. No. Nynaeve and Elayne are still pretty doubtful, though, that these men can be trusted. Juilin did betray them to the Black Ajah, and Tom was sent by Moiraine. So that is Nynaeve's argument. Like, Moiraine sent him. He's obviously a spy. But Elaine's like, listen, no, Moiraine has proven herself now. We've had plenty of chats with her. We've gotten to know her better. Like, she's proven herself that she's straightforward. She's upright. She wants to help. She's not... There's no subterfuge that we can see. There definitely is, though.
Just wait for the next chapter.
Like, you're both wrong. So anyway, the sea folk have since found a Tairen pilot because they have to have one to get out by law, even though he's completely useless on board. There's no reason for him. Totally. They know more than he knows. So, and we're off on another adventure. Yay! And there was much rejoicing again. So soon enough, they're out in the fingers of the dragon. They've already dropped off the pilot. I am skidding along because this chapter is pretty long. There's a bunch of other talking about, look at the birds and look at the fish and look at the water and the sunset and all of that, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, lovely stuff. It's beautiful. And they're dolphins. Dolphins. Yeah, we get to the dolphins. I do touch on the dolphins. So they dropped off the pilot on some little island there, and not some abandoned island. It's apparently where all the pilots get dropped off because there's houses there with a bag of gold. Thanks for nothing, dude. Get off my boat. Ship. Sorry. And they're off into the open ocean, and that's when everybody just, as soon as land is out of sight, everyone's shirts come off, much to Villy's enjoyment.
The sangria comes out.
The sangria comes out. Someone, DJ comes out. Turntables start pumping. Juilin's so uncomfortable. Juilin is so... Landladies.
Bare-breasted. Sangrias. Yeah. It's like I'm back in Cannes. The French Riviera.
Not Cairns. There's a different one. All right. Julian's super uncomfortable. He doesn't know where to look. So eventually he just goes downstairs. Like, he can't handle it. I'm out of here. Too many boobies.
Bless him.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll go back to the scene. I will touch on the scene a bit. It is beautiful. Not the boobies, the scenery, I mean. The ocean, the sun is setting, the dolphins are swimming. Yeah, well, everything. We'll take it all into account. The dolphins are swimming alongside the boat. The flying fish just splashing about. It's awesome. Everyone is loving it, except Juilin, of course, because he's missing it all downstairs. Elayne is still on deck. She's walking along the balustrades. What do you call the side of the boat where you don't fall over? That's a balustrades on stairs. Yeah, on stairs on boats as well.
Rail? Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying that as if I know it. I don't know it.
I feel like that's a word I should know.
It's eluded me. Anyway, she's walking along the handrails, following the dolphins, and she gets up at the bow there, and she bumps into old Thom at the bow, and they have a little chat. He's sad. He's very sad because the dolphins are free and he's not. He's looking at them. Oh, shame, dude. He's really wrapped up in the Aes Sedai plots. He tried so hard, but nope, you're not going to get out of them. But then again, the ocean is full of things that are constantly trying to kill dolphins. So he figures pretty much in the same boat as me. Excuse the pun. So everyone's got their problems. Deal with it. There's a long section here, but there's all talk of writing of songs. She asks him if he's going to write the Ballad of Rand, and he mentions, Loyal's writing a book about Rand, but he's in a mood today, I tell you. And he's like, but who's going to remember it? By the time the next age comes, everyone's going to have forgotten our names, our stories and words are going to be twisted around. You may be the Dragon Reborn, in the stories in thousands of years from now, or me even. He mentions again, there's some interesting mentions there of Mosk and Merc that we've talked about before, Queen Elsbeth, Anla, the wise counselor. Like, they talk about silk and where does it come from? And is it from an animal? Is it a plant? Like, there's just so much mystery. And that's when the talk starts about Shara, because Elaine's like, why don't you just ask the sea folk? And he laughs at her like, no, not even the sea folk know. I mean, because when they go trading in Shara, there's, at this point, it is that Thom doesn't even know the name Shara. She kind of lets it slip. And there's a couple of trading ports along the coast, and they're all with high walls, and you don't see what's beyond. And everybody that crosses the walls goes to live in party land and never wants to return. Then before she pulls one of his mustaches again, she gets this overwhelming urge to do so. She bids him adieu and heads below deck. She's like, no, before I embarrass myself again, I'm just going to get out of here. On her way down, she sees old Joran and the glow of Saidar surrounding her. And she's like, that's why the Aes Sedai are not allowed on board to see this. And she sees her weaving flows of air as thick as cables, but as intricate as a fine mesh. So the Windfinder is actually channeling to dissipate a storm that she anticipated, that she sensed coming, and also to give them favorable winds. And I'm like, dude, that's full on cheating, eh? This is some information you could have shared, but then again, the Aes Sedai don't share their stuff either. Just another one of these instances. If there was just better communication in this world, everything would be so much better for everyone.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
Tell you.
Did we touch on that in the previous chapter, or in this chapter, where they explicitly say that the sea folk do not let Aes Sedai on the ships?
No, we should have, though. That was in the previous chapter.
They're not allowed on the ship because they use the excuse that the Aes Sedai bring bad luck.
Yeah, we did.
But at this, that was more sort of like, this is just a bad luck, bad omen thing, that Aes Sedai don't get transported by them. But we know in this chapter what the truth is. Like, they're going to steal their woman.
Yeah, carrying them off to the tower.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And they I think they alluded.
And they would.
They said that they give the tower, every now and then they'll give them a girl. Just enough to not tickle their interest that what's happening there is their girls there. But smart. Jody, go.
Yeah, you're stealing my thunder, bro. So Elayne and Joran have a chat then about keeping this secret. Interestingly, Elayne promises that she will do her best to keep the secret, not that she will keep the secret, because I figure her loyalties are to the White Tower, and if someone asks her directly, she won't lie. So she will just avoid that situation. I just won't go back to the White Tower.
Sooner or later, she'll be swearing on the oath rod, and she will be incapable of lying.
Exactly.
Now, on this, sorry, Jody, to interrupt you there.
No, go for it.
Does she snap now as well that this is why? Does she put one and one together that Avienda can channel?
No, that's later. That's in the Waste.
Is that later?
But this is the catalyst. This is the first time that she realizes that she has an affinity with this woman, with Joran. and that she's a channeler. And this is where she starts putting it together, but it is fully like confirmed. Well, for us as the reader, by Egwene in the West, because Elayne is not there.
Mm.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how often this has happened where a theme is introduced, like just in the 6 chapters that we're covering, and then it's sort of seen through to its conclusion in the same stretch. Like here, it's almost like Robert Jordan's like, okay, cool, I should start explaining how people can sort of sense that, you know, someone can channel or not. And then in this chapter, he sort of plants the seed, and then he brings the whole thought to its conclusion in the Waste when Egwene notices it about the wise ones. It's very cool, very useful for us.
No. It's almost as if he was a good writer and he planned stuff out. It's incredible.
For our podcast. Thanks for spacing those events exactly right to fit in this episode.
On these 6 chapters.
Thanks, RJ.
Now that's foreshadowing for you. So yeah, this is the point in the conversation again where Joran mentions that, like, yeah, they send the White Tower some girls now and then just to, you know, keep them off their trail, keep them off their backs, so to speak. And this is again where Elayne promises to try and keep their secret. And then she mentions again about the Shawnchan. She's talking about women who can channel. I suppose you met a Damane on the Shawnchan ship, that woman that was held captive. And Joran's like, oh shit, I didn't know she was a captive because I killed him. I set fires on their ship and sunk that thing into the bottom of the ocean and everyone died. And she feels really bad about it. But she was attacked by the Damane, who broke 2 of her masts, but then she set some fires on their ship, and then they were boarded. And Toram is your old mate, as Morris referred to him, with the spectacles. Toram is his name. He led the crew to fight, and that's where he got that scar on his face, which we didn't quite touch on in your chapter, but it is a pretty recent scar. They say it's a puckered scar. Yeah. That adjective comes up a lot, like in Rand's side as well. There's also puckered.
Yeah.
And he fought them off, and they managed to win the day. But that Shawnchan ship is lying in ashes in the bottom of the ocean right now. So Joran tells her that they will be what?
Ashes at the bottom of the ocean. Don't ashes float?
Yes. Charred wood at the bottom of the ocean. Jesus. Your pedantry, Moritz, is rubbing off on Willie now.
It's radiating off me across the internet.
Anyway, Joran tells her that they'll be in Tanchico in 10 days. And, I mean, if you look at the map, that's bloody amazing. And everyone, I mean, Elayne is surprised as well. And we get a little breakdown about, because, of course, they're cheating with the Windfinder on board.
But it's it's the length of the entire south coast and around the corner.
Yeah. I mean, it's fast. Not as fast as Rand travels later on, but it's pretty damn fast. But yeah, so she says that's up to 10 times faster than the slowest ships, the ones that stop in every little port along the way, and twice as fast as the next fastest ship. So they're not going to stop. They're going to channel the right winds that they need all the way, and they'll get there in 10 days. And then Elayne asks Joran to teach her some of these flows. She's like, I've never channeled anything near as profound as like cable thick flows in my entire life. And Joran's like, but you're Aes Sedai, like what could I teach you? And again, that myth of the Aes Sedai being all-knowing is pervasive all over the world. But she's surprised, and she's like, if she agrees, and eventually says at the end there of the chapter that perhaps we will both learn something. So a little bit of interchange of knowledge. Finally, after 3,000 years, it'll be nice to have some sharing of knowledge.
Good old Elayne,
She is the best.
Forever the diplomat, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Love her.
I love that, but I also love that this is sort of Elayne and Nynaeve is on their own little paths now. Not Nynaeve, sorry, Egwene. And Egwene is going to learn something from a different group of women that can channel, as we learn later on. And Elayne is doing the same thing. She's all of a sudden discovered that there's this set of knowledge in the power this way. So it's like their character building or progression is sort of building up in this, even in their different pathways.
They're leveling up different skill trees.
Yeah, exactly. No, but they're fresh blood, fresh blood, new blood. I don't know how to say that. New blood in the tower, young bloods. They've got different ideas. They're radicals. They're They see the world
They are.
differently to the established Aes Sedai. And this is another thought I had as well. Like, how many little subsections and subgroups of women channelers are there in the world that know stuff that the Aes Sedai couldn't even dream of? Like, in the beginning of the books, you're like, ooh, Aes Sedai, Aes Sedai. But now it's just like, the Aes are just one of many.
Yeah.
Plot
Which is
twist.
cool.
Silk is made by weaving the power in Sharaj.
And squeezing it out of silkworms. There was a fun little moment at the start of the chapter where Nynaeve says to Elayne while grinning, "You know how you are when you become overwrought." Like she's joking with Elayne about, like, she is self-aware about the fact that she knows she actually sometimes flies off the handle when things are getting too intense. I mean, it doesn't help her stop that from happening at all, because she continues to do this for the rest of the series. But at least this gave me some, like, she's not oblivious. At least she knows, and she can, in this little moment, sort of half admit that, yes, maybe I do sometimes come on a bit strong.
Yes. Character growth.
But I hated her bossing Thom around like that. She's it's so rude. She says to him at the end, like, "Off with you." And then she has this sort of chat with Elayne about it, and like how, these guys have to know that the first moment, if they give them any leeway, the first moment they get, they will disobey and they will go do their own thing, and they could jeopardize the whole thing. So she has this sort of cockamamie justification for this terrible treatment of Thom. But he's also been traveling with them from Eamon's Field. Like, she knows him. She could be a bit better about it than
But
that.
see,
like, pull him into your circle of trust instead of trying to dominate him. But that's Nynaeve's way.
to Nynaeve, Thom has been nothing but a gleeman. She's not had any of the interaction because remember the long stretch of before the apple cart stretch, the boys and Thom were with Baal Domon on the boat, and then still continued that pathway with them even after separation, coming back again to the boys and doing the thing. So for Nynaeve, he's just Thom. He's just a gleeman juggling balls and playing a flute. What does he know? He's just been told to come along as company because he knows where there's a pub to get a good pint and a bed to sleep in.
They travel together up to Shadow Logoth.
Yes.
Yeah? I'm trying to remember. I'm not stating that as fact. I'm asking.
Yeah, they get separated at Shadow Logoth.
And come together in Camelin.
Without Thom.
Cannot
Thom is
remember.
dead. Thom disappears at White Breach.
That's right. Thom's not there
so
when they reunited Camelin.
Nynaeve has only had Thom from Gleeman in Eamon's Field up into Shadow Logoth, and never again up until now. So her treatment of him is shit. Like, I do not approve of it at all. But she sees him now as a peasant's entertainment in a pub. So,
and like Jody said, she knows, right, Joe, that he's been sent by Moiraine.
Yes.
So, I mean, that alone would sour her.
Because he tells her, like, a mutual friend, a woman who found you and the shepherd in the town sent me.
Right.
So she knows.
Okay, I get it. Still rankles me, though.
no, it does.
Man, come on.
Me as well.
Come
Like,
on. But it makes sense. I mean, that's her way, right? Like, that's how she tries to exert control, by domineering, not by manipulating or, extracting use out of people. She tries to dominate them, and Nynaeve gonna Nynaeve. We've said it before, and we'll say it again.
I think she gets better.
Does she get better? Like, after she gains the shawl, maybe? She becomes a bit more composed?
Look,
Maybe
I
when she
have
becomes
been
a yellow.
wrong in the past about people redeeming themselves.
Never.
I just see the best in everyone.
Moritz, put a pin
Bless
in
you,
this
Joe.
one. Put a pin in this one. Nynaeve changes her way the minute she breaks through a block.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. Making a note now. Not really. Okay. Jody, you mentioned the Mosque and Merc, the obvious correlation with Moscow and America, and like, were they really giants? No, they were countries. Elsbeth ruled the world. Is that Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah.
That's 5. Who is Anla, the wise advisor?
She is apparently a columnist, like that auntie that you write into to give you advice. It's based on a famous American. What do they call them? Agony aunt.
Like
Kind
an
of column.
agony aunt, yeah.
Yeah.
Cherry.
Yeah, Jerry Springer.
Not Cherry Spring. But yeah, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was like, is it Princess Anne? Like, who are they talking about? But no. Okay, cool. So it's a reference to like an agony aunt.
I've watched The Crown, so I'm now an expert on the British royalty, and Princess Anne was no advisor. I can just clearly, unequivocally state that.
Okay, then. Anything else there before we move on to this gem of a chapter?
Nope.
I am going to come clean to you guys now, and I think it was probably obvious to you from the day I sent out the chapter assignments, or at least until when you read the chapters. I wanted this one for myself. Selfish, greedy little Moritz wanted this Moiraine point of view chapter all to himself.
When I read, I never refer to, because you send us the chapter allocations a week before we do this. So I forget about how it's allocated, and I purposefully don't read it again until I've read the entire lot.
Okay.
So for me, it's kind of like just a full absorption of the book. I don't want to think that I need to remember more of this and less of that, because I feel it spoils the story for me. And when I was reading this chapter, I was like, please, God, let this not be my chapter. There's too much politics here for me to remember.
It is a lot, eh? I've told you guys before, when I read the book, I have a green highlighter with me, and I just highlight, all the sections that I want to take a note of later. So later when I do my notes, I just, shoot straight to those green sections. This chapter is very green. It is. It's not quite half and half. That's probably exaggerating a bit, but it is greener than any of the other chapters I've done thus far in the whole series.
I'm stoked that you chose this chapter for yourself, and in no way am I envious, because I was looking at the High Lord names and I was like, wow, this is a lot of fumbling for me to do.
Yeah, look, I'm still going to fumble those. For me, the interesting stuff, which we'll get into now, obviously, is just this sort of seeing the inner workings of Moraine's mind. It is so rare. Like, I think I selfishly took the Watchers Over the Waves, that chapter where she does the mental jujitsu with Lan, right? Like, sort of like leading him down one path and then surprising him with the question at the end. I thought that was brilliant. That was masterful to me. And this chapter as well, when I read it, I was just like, holy shit. Oh, wow. She really thinks, oh, fuck. Okay. Cold-hearted bitch. But I love her. And I understand her so much more after reading this chapter. And it definitely does. It fills in a lot of blanks for me. And these chapters are so rare where you get a point of view from her. And she is so critical to the story that this is just an absolute gem. So, okay, you guys are going to have to bear with me. I'm going to probably pause a lot and like talk about things. And after each paragraph that I've highlighted in green, I'm going to have to stop and talk about it. So bear with me. So chapter 21 is called Into the Heart. As we've said, this is a rare treat, right? Looking at events and plots and plans from Moiraine's point of view. So obviously we are joining Moiraine as we enter the scene where we're in the heart of the stone, and only the High Lords ever enter the heart of the stone. So not all lords, only the High Lords, and that only 4 times a year. So it's very rare for people to come in here. But now the heart is filled with the High Lords and ladies and all the lesser nobles. They're arranged in like a thick hollow circle, so like an empty circle right in the middle of the heart, with the High Lords obviously standing in a circle, and then sort of in concentric circles going out from behind them, the other lords and ladies, all ordered in rank as well. So all the guys at the back are the low-ranking nobles. And in the middle, obviously, you've got the huge dome ceiling over the middle, and this is where Calandor, until very recently, was sitting spinning in the air. The High Lords and ladies are all dressed in their finest gear. They think, the Lord Dragon is coming here to make a grand proclamation, and they're not wrong. Moiraine and Egwene enter, and they sort of proceed toward the middle, and because of the High Lords dislike of Aes Sedai. They move with that characteristic little bubble of space around them, like no one wants to get too close to them. So as the space opens up around them, they move through the crowd pretty easily. But Lan is nowhere to be found, and Moiraine is annoyed by it. And this is obviously Lan going to tell Juilin to go meet the girls at the docks, to go look after his precious Nynaeve, and also, what is the girl's name? Elayne.
The other one.
But it's so this is one of those things, right? Like, you don't often see or hear of Moiraine being annoyed with Lan, and here we've got direct access to her inner thoughts, and she can sense him through the bond, so she isn't worried about him, but she knows that it's got something to do with Nynaeve. She says he fought the strings that Nynaeve had tied around him as hard as he'd ever fought the Trollocs and the Blight. But it's futile, and Moiraine knows this, and she even thinks she had done what had to be done there. She will have him, meaning Nynaeve, when Moiraine dies, and not before. So here we know Moiraine knows that Lan is going to go to Nynaeve. It's not even an issue in her mind, and all her arrangements with Morel and all that sort of stuff is to make sure that she has Lan until she no longer needs him, until she dies. I wonder if at this point she knows how she's going to die. Moiraine asks Egwene again if she knows anything about what Rand is going to announce here, but Egwene has only heard rumors. Moiraine thinks Egwene is oblivious to the news of the White Cloaks in the Two Rivers because she's not sort of saying anything about it, but she thinks it would probably be too much to hope that Rand doesn't know already, and she's through this chapter constantly fearing that Rand's going to, act with his heart, right, and just do the knee-jerk reaction of, I'm going back to the Two Rivers to save it from the White Cloaks. She tells Egwene that she should be making herself more available to Rand as a confidant, so they've got a history, so Rand might divulge information to her, but Egwene knows and says that he won't confide in anyone. He'll hide his pains and he'll hope that he can deal with him before anyone notices, which is spot on. Egwene knows him exactly. That is exactly what he does with the wound in his side and all of his burdens and all that sort of stuff. He doesn't really share. So Moiraine knows Elayne and Nynaeve should be aboard the Raker by now, and she mentions that they should be out of the way. This is one of those things. Moiraine does not care whether they go to Taim or whether they go to Tanchico. They just need to get out of the way. And this becomes obvious through this chapter as well, that Moiraine is very pointedly trying to isolate Rand so that he will come to her and only her for advice. Brutal, right? Like, she knows these people now for a while, and she is still just pushing them away, so that she can, all under the guise that she's going to make sure that Rand succeeds at Thom and Guidon, which is a pretty noble cause, but she's pretty Machiavellian in the way that she goes about it.
Is this why she felt guilty with Thom? Not that she made him sad, but that she had to push him away because she got rid of Thom as well.
Maybe
She sent them,
because in the act of pushing him away from Rand, she's also pushing him away from herself.
Exactly. And it's not that she made him relive those memories of his nephew, but that she was losing him because she also has feelings for him, but she needs to isolate Rand.
Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Okay.
But she also mentions here, Moiraine, in her thoughts, obviously a lot of this is in her thoughts, but she suspects that the Windfinders can channel, and that sending the girls to take an Atha ship might shed some light on this. Is like a bonus for her, like, they might figure out finally whether the Windfinders can channel or not. So this closely kept secret, Moiraine is on top of it. She's like, I think they can channel. She thinks that Thom will help them find the right crew and stuff, and a ship if they don't come right with the Atha, because she knows the Sea Folk don't take Aes Sedai. So if they don't manage there, at least she has faith that Thom is savvy enough to help them find the right crew and ship to take them, which I thought was cool. Like, she sent him away, but she has faith in him. She knows that he's capable, and she obviously respects him on some level. I'm going to insert into the canon, like, I'm assuming that she respects him in some way, but this leads me to think that she does. She thinks that Joy's story about Taim was actually the more likely, but that her message to the Amelin should take care of that. Do you guys remember Swan mentioning anything in that meeting with Min when those two messages arrive? Swan says in that message that Taim has escaped.
Mm-hmm.
But Moiraine doesn't know anything about Taim escaping. Here, her message would be the Black Ajah are planning to help Taim escape.
She got 2 messages. There was 2 chicken bones.
The
to
other one
break
was that
open.
Rand had taken Calandor.
Yeah, but that's the one from Moiraine. She doesn't mention
That's
everything
the one from
out
Moiraine,
loud that she read.
Exactly.
But did she not open the first one that said Taim had escaped? And
Yes.
then after that, she opened Rand's news. So whatever information was in there that she supplied about there's a plan for Taim to escape was surpassed by the fact that, well, he's already escaped.
It's already happened, yeah.
Your pigeon is too fucking late, mate.
Cool. Yeah, I guess, I mean, maybe Moiraine would not have sent 2. Or actually, she says she sent multiple pigeons, but she wouldn't send like pigeons with individual messages. She'll put all the messages in multiple things to make sure that all the messages get there.
I don't know.
I don't know.
can't
These
answer that
pigeons seem
question.
unreliable. I find it interesting that Moiraine would think like she's wrong here, that the Taim plot, or unless Taim is he freed by the Black Ajah? Guess we'll find out. Like, how does he escape? But she thinks that the hidden danger in Tanchico is less likely, but that the girls can handle whatever that is. So she's got some sense of trust in the girls' capabilities as well. I mean, Nynaeve is super powerful when she can channel. She can really take care of business. But again, more importantly, they were out of her hair and away from Rand. Her only regret is that Egwene is not going to Tanchico, or even better, the Tower. But at least going to the Waste takes Egwene out of the way as well. Well, not really, because Rand's going with her to the exact same place. So, joke's on you, Moiraine. But, just here, even like she's telling Egwene to be a close confidant to Rand because he trusts her, but then also is in the background planning on how to get her away from Rand so that she is the only one. She thinks a small consolation would be if the wise ones really could teach Egwene about dreaming, which we know they do. Egwene makes a comment about poor Lady Altima of love triangle fame, but Moiraine knows she's anything but pitiful. She's extremely dangerous. She's glad that Egwene is too naive to realize this yet, and surprised that Thom had missed with that one. He seems reluctant to move against women. Altima was possibly the most dangerous noble in Tyr, man or woman. She's a true sort of behind-the-scenes puppet master type, and Moiraine thinks to herself, something will need to be done about her.
Yeah, that stuck with me, that line as well.
Oh yes, there's another heavier line even later. So Moiraine picks out Lady Estander, Altima's most obvious rival. She thinks she could be used to sort of divert Altima's attention away from Rand, like cause some, kerfuffle with using Estander. This is Game of Houses through and through, right? This is Moiraine flexing her Kyrenian muscles. And for a moment, she actually regrets sending Thom away. She can't deal with this bullshit, this minutia, like this is beneath her. But Thom had gotten too close to Rand. She wanted Rand to seek her counsel and hers alone. So, again, admitting that sending Thom was to isolate Rand, which is heavy. I love this part. She sees Matt standing across the circle from them, looking scruffy. He's slouching. His coat looks like he's slept in it. He's standing with his hands in his pockets. I think he's leaning against the column or something as well.
His hair is uncombed.
Yeah, totally. And Matt notices Moiraine, and he gives her one of his rudely defiant grins.
Go, Matt.
She thinks it's rude that he's so defiant. But at least she could see him, because he's been evading her spies with ease. He was, quote, an exhausting young man to keep track of.
Now, this is another thing that I thought of. Now, did he know about the spies and was actively avoiding them? Or is he just so lucky that he just avoids them without even realizing they're there?
I like to think that his lifetime of stealing pies and sneaking badges and stuff, he knows when people are watching him, and he knows how to get out from under their watchful eye. I think it is almost instinctual for Matt at the moment. And then throw his luck in there. And, the cart is going to cross the road when he ducks into an alleyway, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's probably a bit of both. But it just fits Matt's character so well that he is so hard for her to track. And I love that she's so put out by it. Egwene chimes in and says that she thinks Matt sleeps in his coats on purpose.
He does. It's because he doesn't sleep. He's up all night gambling.
Totally. But she's like, he must be doing it on purpose because he's doing it so he always does, and he always looks like such a schlub. But she comments that you can't see Perrin. Perrin's nowhere. And Moiraine can't see him either. Can't see Lan either. Lan would need a stern talking to when she laid hands on him. He seems torn between not only Nynaeve and Moiraine, but Rand as well. Like, Moiraine is noticing that, all these little Taishar Manetherin comments, like his behavior in Faldara, all that sort of stuff. She is very cognizant of the fact, and like we said in that Watchers Over the Waves, the Watchers chapter, like she can observe in Lan a change in his behavior, and she had to make sure that he is still loyal to her to the very, very end. She even thinks here, at least Lan's time with Rand was useful. Another tie for her to Rand, which is cold, like, oh, I see my water is being pulled towards the Tairen and they're spending a lot of quality time. I can use this. Heavy. Again, I have to keep reminding myself she's trying to save the world, right? She is laser focused on her goal, but fuck, she can be cold.
Yeah.
Egwene comments that Perrin's strong sense of duty would have compelled him to attend there. And she's right, his strong sense of duty did compel him, but it compelled him to go save the Eamon's Fielders, not to be there with Rand.
Yeah.
Moiraine is sort of musing on how hard it is to juggle 3 Tairen when Egwene says that she likes Aiel. She seems to truly care for Perrin. And Moiraine agrees, but thinks to herself she may need to have a talk with Aiel about the secrets she's been keeping from Perrin. Moiraine knows. She knows about her lineage. I mean, there's not a lot of interaction and time for Moiraine to have figured this out. But she knows. Which just, it lends to Moraine's mystique even more, how does she know? Like, there's no photographs, there's no newspapers or anything. How would Moiraine interact with this person and know that it's Davram Bashir's daughter from Saltea, cousin to Queen Tenobia? Just elevates Moiraine again in my mind. Egwene accuses Moiraine of being unable to recognize a human emotion like love, which I thought was cool. Like, Egwene is really, like, she gets quite uppity sometimes. But Moiraine puts her back in her place with just a look. And it's in that moment when she was about to sort of like give her another little stern talking to, when suddenly the crowd of Tairens give all these startled gasps. And in walks Rand, striding in, cradling Calandor in his arm like a scepter. And the Tairen Lord's making a sort of wide path before him, and the 100-odd black-veiled Aiel trotting immediately behind him. I mean, Rand certainly leveling up his showmanship skills as well. Like, he knows how to make an entrance.
He is sending a message loud and clear.
Big time. Nobody's going to start any trouble in here, or these Aiel will school all of them real quick. The Aiel sort of progress with Rand up until the edge of the circle, but Rand keeps walking into the very center of the circle and sort of runs his eye over the room. And in this moment, I just thought of Rand standing there, eyeballing all these high lords, standing there like a king. Our boy's grown up. Yeah. Hey, like he is a long way from the sheep herder from Eamon's Field. But as he's scanning the room, he seems surprised to see Egwene, because he probably assumed that she'd be going to Tanchico as well. He gives Moiraine an infuriating smile. Again, just love it when the boys smile at her and sort of like get under her skin. And then my favorite moment almost in this entire chapter is Rand and Matt give each other a smile that make them look like boys again.
Yeah.
Moiraine notices, she's like, oh, okay. And this to me it goes so far to remind me and assure me that they are still friends. There've been so many moments along the way up until now that I've really questioned, like, I mean, how strong is their friendship really, and can it withstand this sort of thing? And there's actually, in the stretch of chapters, like when Rand and Matt go to Rivedian later as well, like there is a couple reminders of just, yes, they are friends and they can still be friendly despite all this other stuff going. So this little stolen grin at each other that makes them both look like boys goes a long way to sort of assure me that is still
I think it's because Rand knows that Matt is going to thoroughly enjoy what he's about to do. Like, if there's anyone in this room that's going to appreciate this, it's you, buddy.
Check me ruffle some feathers here, buddy. You think badgers do the trick? Check this out. So Rand then says that High Lord Sunamun will forge a new treaty with Mayene according to Rand's own guidelines. I'm going to paraphrase here, but he's guaranteed it with his life. And people sort of laugh, the Tairens are laughing. Ah, ha, ha, ha. I don't know if there was another conversation beyond the one that we were actually privy to, where Rand, burns that other treaty and chases them out of his chambers and tells him he's going to hang High Lords until he gets the treaty he wants. I don't know if there was another conversation post this, but that is that same continuation that Rand is referring to here. So people are laughing, and then Rand goes, basically, if he doesn't, I'll hang him. End of laughter.
Abrupt silence.
Brilliant.
Totally. I mean, Rand he's stamping his authority on this place because he knows he has to leave. So he is putting the fear of the dragon in them. Even Moiraine here thinks she has to force herself to loosen her grip on her skirts. Like, Egwene is gripping her skirts quite visibly, but even Moiraine, who is the picture of Zen, right? She's visibly shaken or like surprised by what Rand is doing here. And Rand goes on to say, furthermore, the armies of Tyr will march, and the crowd perks up, and a cry of Ilion will fall is taken up.
Just immediately jump to that conclusion. Yay, we're finally going to kick some Ilion butt.
They are so predictably prejudiced, these fucking Tairens. Egwene and Matt look super disappointed. But Rand raises his hand to sort of still the crowd, and he waits for them to be absolutely silent before he says, with sort of like a sardonic smile on his face, the armies will ride north to Tairen, led by a string of nobles, which I'm not going to name here. All of them a threat to Rand. And the whole operation of sending the army north, not to Ilion, but north to Tairen, will be funded by High Lord Tauren, who will be accompanying the army just to make sure that his money is spent well. Or I don't know if he makes it like to protect the interests of Tyr, sort of comment like Tauren, who was, instrumental in that garbage treaty that Sunamun had brought before Rand before. And Moiraine has to give Rand a sort of mental bow for his choices in the Lords. But the march north seems insane to her. She's like, what is this madness? This means this sinks her plan of a war with Ilion completely, because if the entire army is going north, Tyr is exposed, let alone on the front foot against Ilion, where Samael rules. High Lord Malin, who is one of the named lords to lead the army to Tairen, he sort of meekly suggests that intervening in a civil war is a bad idea. And Rand sets him straight and says, you are marching north to restore peace and to feed the hungry. This is a humanitarian effort. This is not you extending the influence of Tyr into Tairen. And Egwene sort of sighs in relief, saying she knew that he wouldn't start a war, but Moiraine educates her in the ways of the world by assuring her that there will still be much bloodshed. You think this is going to be a peaceful trip? It is not. Synchronized sage nodding from Jody and Willie to that stage. So Moiraine, she can't figure out Rand's motives. This makes no sense to her. So why this laughably humane and utterly useless campaign? Could Lanfear be behind it? And she actually considers Lanfear turning Rand to the shadow. She's thinking to herself, I'm not going to let Rand just turn to the shadow. She thinks Lanfear is behind this plot. But then Rand pipes up again and he adds that as an afterthought that Lady Altima will oversee the feeding of the hungry and that her husband will be taken care of by Lady Estander, her greatest rival. So Rand is really just like turning the knife, twisting the knife, turning on the screws. Like he is fucking with these High Lords to the nth degree. Thom has really set Rand up with some choice plans here, just to mess with everyone's plans. Moiraine thinks this is a mistake, though, because she thinks that when Altima comes back, she would actually have gained more power. This will give her more influence, being the one chosen by Rand to do this whole humanitarian thing. And that's when she thinks perhaps an accident can be arranged in Tairen.
Oh, that's that other thing you mentioned, yeah.
She's talking murder here.
Mm-hmm. But
so Willie, you're not off.
Bomb drops still.
Willie was talking about torture. Now they're just jumping straight to murder.
Murder's a lot less
Murder is way preferable to torture.
No, but that is hectic. There's nothing in the Three Oaths to prevent them from actually committing murder. It's just all about using the power as a weapon and that sort of thing. But fucking hell, that's heavy. Ultima faints. She just passes out. And Egwene is like worried about her, but Moiraine just says to her, "Don't worry. Look, the handmaids are taking care of her. Look, she's fine."
She says, like, she's just fainted. See, I can recognize emotion. Little stab at him.
Yeah. But Egwene acknowledges the fact that she thinks Rand has just done something very clever and very cruel, which is true. Moiraine can notice that Rand is he's fighting this, it is a cruel act, and she can see he's sort of grimacing at the floor, and maybe he's not quite as hard as he was trying to show everyone that he is, which is a long-running theme in the story. Rand acting hard, like trying to push himself to be hard, like all the way up to the very end. He is hardening himself the whole time, like building walls around himself, turning himself to steel. I think there's a lot of that sort of language used as well, like he has to harden up. Moiraine says to Egwene, "Let us hope he's finished with being clever for today." My note there is, "You wish." And Estienne pipes up. So Torian's son, he's half holding up his dad, who's also like gone a bit fainty after hearing that he's going to fund this whole humanitarian effort. And Estienne pipes up in the sort of confused silence, saying, "With you to lead us, my lord dragon, we shall conquer the world." Guess again. Rand says, "I will not be with you. I'm going away for a time." And he seems to be concentrating on Calandor in that moment with like more sweat, like actually beating on his face. Moiraine can see he's doing something with great effort. And he says, "The stone held Calandor before I came, and the stone should hold it again until I return." And he spins it in the air, so it's sort of like hilt up, and it's like brilliant in color. It's like it's shining, and he's channeled obviously a lot into it, and he drives it into the floor of the heart of the stone, and wild blue lightning is arcing up from the sword into the dome, and the floor is shaking, and it actually heaves people off their feet. And this is obviously the event that Perrin and the traveling party with Loyal had heard, and what caused the boat in the harbor to shake, to rock quite heavily. And Moiraine, as she sort of like realizes what's going, has got Egwene on her. She sort of pushes Egwene up off her, and she thinks, this is the worst of all her nightmares. Where is he going? So this is worst case scenario for Moiraine, and now she is mentally scrambling. What the fuck is this kid doing? Rand gets up. The Aiel are already on their feet. They're already looking around. What's going on? Yep, got to be alert. But Rand gets up and he says to everyone to remember that he's coming back for the sword. If anyone wants to take his place as ruler of Tyr, just pull the sword out of the ground. But remember the price of failure. So he's obviously booby-trapped this thing, and that's what all his channeling was about. But this is a very, very clear parallel with Excalibur, right?
Yeah.
Like, the sword, it's in the stone.
Yes.
It's the sword in the stone.
Exactly.
Which, can either be like, I don't know, it's very on the nose for me. Like it's a bit like, okay, RJ. But it's a cool thing that Rand did, yeah. And it obviously looked cool. And with that, Rand marches out, followed by the Aiel. So Moiraine and Egwene dust themselves off, and they set off after Rand. Tairen High Lords, obviously, who knows what they're thinking? They probably still think they've been hit by a truck, getting up off the ground, wondering what the fuck is going on here. But as Moiraine and Egwene are trying to catch up with Rand and the Aiel, Moiraine wonders how the Aiel could be so uneasy around Aes Sedai, but follow Rand so calmly. They're a complete enigma to her. Moiraine has a big blind spot here with the Aiel. Like the whole, like, people of the dragon, he could be he who comes with the dawn, like all those things are like, yes, they've already accepted that he is their prophesied leader. That's why they're so calm around him. He's a male channeler, sure, but they've been waiting for him. She thinks about like how she doesn't understand anything about the Aiel, about some of the spies that she's sent, to sort of try and find out about them. One guy, one of her eyes and ears, has completely disappeared. The man has vanished. For all she knows, he's dead. And one of the women was found bound and gagged naked, hanging from the battlements. And she was beside herself. She would never go above the first floor of the stone as well. Like, Moiraine eventually had to send her off into the country. This woman's life is now forever changed by following Moiraine. And the man that she had sent is gone.
Yeah.
Could be dead.
Most
Which
likely.
I just thought, like, Moiraine doesn't even spare it a thought. She's using people left, right, and center with very little regard of their well-being to, get a handle on what Rand is planning and what he's up to. So eventually, when Moiraine and Egwene catch up with Rand asks Egwene why she stayed and didn't go with Nynaeve and Elayne to Tanchico. And Egwene tells him of her plan to go to Rhuidean with Avienda to study with the wise ones. And Rand actually misses a step before composing himself again. Obviously hitting the button like, oh, he's also going to Rhuidean. They have sort of like a brief moment together, reminiscing about what they used to think would be the hardest thing they would ever have to do, plowing a field, shearing sheep all day. Egwene's talking spinning was really hard on her fingers. But Moiraine has no time for this idle banter, right? She just butts in straight away and asks, why did he do it? And he faints with not faint like Ultima or Torian, but he like a MMA feint or boxing feint with some response about the High Lords and ladies. They have to fall into line and blah, blah, blah. But Moiraine says, no. She's talking about leaving Calandor, right? Don't give me this other bullshit. What are you doing? And Rand explains that with Calandor, he feels like he can do anything. He knows he can do anything. But right now, without having it with him, it's actually a weight off his shoulders. And that's when he quotes from the prophecies. Into the heart, he thrusts the sword, into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? So Moiraine thinks this is just in reference to him taking the sword, but I think Rand has the truth of it here. Later in the story, and I'm going to set myself up here, but I'm not going to pick a name, but he sends one of the Ashaman to go fetch it for him.
Narishma.
Was it Narishma?
I think so, yeah.
So he who draws it out shall follow after. There's some significance to that line being an Ashaman that follows Rand. Moiraine is rightfully afraid that a Forsaken can come and claim it while Rand is away, but Rand has left it booby-trapped, and he says, I almost hope they'll try, which is cool. Awesome. He is so confident in what must be some badass weaves that he's put on there, which can only have come from Luz. Right? Like, to be so nonchalant about leaving the second most powerful male Sa'angreal behind for Samael or anyone to just walk in and take, feeling that it is significant or sufficiently warded that even a Forsaken can't come take it, almost hoping that they would come and try and make his life easier by killing themselves in the process.
Just to be pedantic, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is it not the third most powerful Sa'angreal?
Yes, it would be. Yes, correct. Because of what is the other one called? The Sharan one?
The Sharan one, yeah. The one that came in two pieces in a cave.
Oh, man.
I forget its name now. But yeah, the Kudan Kal.
That one.
The other
We've
one
spoken
is
about
Shara.
it before.
Yeah. And then this.
Yes, that's true. That actually changes. In the very beginning of the story, it is Calandor that's the second most powerful. And when, it's an inconsistency in the book, at least that's how I've read it. Because we had this conversation last time when Calandor is mentioned. The Sakarnan.
The Sakaran?
That's what it's called.
Isn't that...
Sakarnan.
Are you sure? Because that sounds a lot like the prophesized ruler of Sakaar that's a Marvel comic, Planet Hulk. But anyway, that sounds similar.
I'm just shutting up over here. I'm just like, you guys knock this one out and go, you do a callback.
Yeah, I don't think it's an inconsistency. I think it's just their point of view. They don't even know about this other Sharan one. So they think it's the second.
Moiraine asks him where he's going, and he tells him. He just says, Rhuidean. And Egwene and Moiraine are shocked. And Moiraine hears sort of like murmurs from the Aiel behind him. Obviously, they didn't know either. No one knew. So she can't ask Rand to make the Aiel leave their presence so that she can talk to him. Not when he could refuse in front of them, because she thinks it'll weaken her position if she asks him favors. So here Moiraine is like, I need to talk to Rand alone. I need him to send the Aiel away so I can actually have a conversation with him. But she's incapable or refuses to ask him because she's not in a position of power yet. She can't force him to do it. And if she has to ask him a favor, it weakens her own standing in his eyes, according to her logic. So she's applying like even Game of Houses level of manipulation and interpretation to her own behavior toward Rand, which is, subtle in the most supreme way, right? She is very, very savvy, to be reductive. And she's right, of course. So she asks if the Aelfin told him this. We know they didn't. But he responds with, "You must trust me, Moiraine, as I have so often had to trust you." And I thought that was such a cool response. Like, there are so many times when she is telling them to do things, when they're escaping from Eamon's Field and all that stuff. Like, she expects them to trust her implicitly. And now he gets to finally turn the tables back on her. And she agrees, quietly thinking, "I will not let you go to the shadow. I've worked too long to allow that, whatever it takes." That's the end of that chapter. What a gem.
Whew, that's a lot of Moraine's point of view, and a lot of like almost devious scheming. Like some of it like downright shocking. I think there was one that you may have missed there. He's planned to let the lady that he's sending to oversee the wealth distribution as a kind of humanitarian, when her husband is done healing by her adversary, that he will come back to join her up in her quest, which is also going to be him at full strength now, possibly going to end her life. And that's where Moiraine thinks that might get her killed.
Cool.
And you made a reference to Moiraine doing these things, thinking about her death. And again, referencing to the passing of Lan's Bond. But we'll put a pin in this because I know we will have to put a pin in this. But my understanding of it was that her passing the bond was if something would happen to her. At that point, she wasn't aware. But after she went to the Elfin, the Elfin, she says that she's happy that has at least been done because of her death coming. So that's kind of answers that question. Like now she knows something's going to happen to her. So it's like kind of like just saying like, oh, well, I've done the right thing by passing my bond on to be handed over. So she didn't know at that time when she's done it that her bond was, or that her death was imminent or coming.
No. But I think she was doing it in case it happens.
Yeah, in case it happens at first, but now it's kind of
now she knows it's going
like,
to
I'm happy it's done, it's planned for. So one less thing to worry about, especially having to level with Rand the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, because they're in a room full of high-level schemers, and Moiraine is noticing all these things and noticing Rand looking down and grimacing, and maybe it's not so hard as he thought. Who else is noticing all of these little telltale signs?
Yeah.
We only see Moraine's point of view, so surely somebody else has noticed the things. Moiraine grabbing her skirts, Rand's little looks between his buddy, him and Matt smiling at each other. Like, what did other people interpret when they saw that?
Yeah.
And did Altima really faint, or did she fake fainting?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past her.
Could be either, hey? Yeah. She seems devious enough.
If she's the most dangerous noble there.
In the experience of a skilled player of Dice Daimar.
Anyway, questions.
She's shortly second to Thom.
Although she got the upper hand in their interaction.
Morris, you covered the shit out of that chapter. So everybody's sitting here quietly going, it is Sakaran with an E at the end. The Sangreal, and the planet Hulk Messiah is Sakarsin. Which is very, very similar. You cut me some slack.
Okay, then. Let's keep going. Chapter 22 is called out of the stone. Take it away, Willem.
They're in the stone, and now they're going out of the stone. Rand
The
is
end.
Rand is on his horse. He's got a new horse that is of Tyrenian bloodline based stock. Riding in front, shortly behind him, Matt and Egwene following, and Moiraine and Lan, and then the Aiel army with their mules that is laden with loot, according to the fifth. Now, Egwene rides up to him and confronts him about this. How did she allow them to do it? It's like, well, it's their right. I'm not going to infringe on other people's cultures and all of that. It's like, how did you feel about your friend of Avinda also picking up silver goblets and doing a bit? They're getting to their little tiff, and not going to get into much, but it's just saying like that is their culture, but she wants to argue the same point with him. But anyway, they have the right to take a fifth for anything that they conquer as to such. Now,
I think he mentions there as well. Sorry, Willie, to return the favor, jumping in your conversation. That he doubts he could have stopped them even if he tried to take to stop them from taking the fifth.
Exactly right. Exactly so right.
I let them, but I wasn't gonna try and stop them.
Remember, 100 Aiel took the stone. Whether they were there or not, they did it, and they sure as hell going to get. And they only took a fraction of a fifth by the value that these lords have amounted in the years. So deal with it.
Yeah.
Now Rand is also now on his horde named. Please help me pronounce this one. Jayaden. But it's from the stories of Jane Fast Rider and Egwene. Good name for a horse. Expecting that there might be a little bit of flack, but this is a horse that knows how to get home, and he hopes that he will eventually have the privilege of going home, even though he knows that he is not going to go home ever again. So Moiraine then starts to like, where's Perrin, and how could you have allowed Perrin to leave? And he says, well, I can't. So would you rather kind of me go? But someone needs to go back and look after our people. And that's why Perrin had to leave. And he's happy he did. He's happy he could let Perrin go and do this. Matt is at least still with him. And she now wants to press him for what is the secret that you have. And again...
Doesn't Lan sort of acknowledge Rand's comment about it's when he does a Tai Shah Manether and...
Yeah, and she's like, I'm going to have a word with Rand. Like, I'm going to have to have a word with Lan soon. She's like getting a little bit tired of Lan and Rand's little buddy that's going on
bromance.
There. Bromance. So she pushes them, Moiraine pushes Rand for the answer to this little secret that he has. What are they going to do? And he's like, well, I've been doing a hell of a lot of reading in the library. And I've explained to the librarian what I'm looking for. And the librarian, gaudy old man or woman, I can't remember, had brought him several books with what he was looking for. And what he was looking for was a portal stone. And more specifically, where's portal stones in Tia? And where are portal stones in the Waste? And specifically Iridian. And he found a book with a peddler that was there, was it 600 years ago? But he explains of a city in the sky surrounded by clouds and there being the exact explanation of a portal stone. So it's like, look, there could be exaggerations, but one does not explain a portal stone to be a portal stone without seeing a portal stone. He's seen one, he knows it, so he's trusting in that. And she's like... Egwene freaks out because she heard the last story of traveling with portal stones, what they had to go through. Matt hears this and he's like, oh, Lord Jesus, not again, not a portal stone. I've gone there, I've died there, 100 deaths. I don't want to do this again. But he's like, no, this is going to work. And the whole time he's like fiddling his pocket or his pouch that has got something in. So obviously we're getting a little bit of a insight into his big plan there. He then explains to her that, look, in all these readings, you've got to believe it. And there were well-drawn maps because in the years of the stone and the nobility, collecting all these artifacts, they actually try to dig out and take the portal stones, but they are immovable. No matter what they tried, and eventually they gave up. So if this is a thing of the past, just let it be. But a map was made, and he's eventually got to a part of the landscape where he called Ruach and said, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Gave him a good description. I need people to look in this area for it. And Ruach summoned the Maidens of the Spear and 4 other septs and gave them the instruction, and off they went. And it was Avienda that very shortly after that, just like on the hill, not up, like, over here, portal stone, come on over. So Rand moves over, pulls off roots and grass and stuff that was growing over it, and you can see the mark, and he's looking for the 2 parallel lines with the wavy little keyboard sign that is next to 1 through it. Tilde. That is the sign for Toman's head. And he's trying to use that as a position around where he wants to go to, which will be in the waste, is how I understand it. But Ruach then comes
I
to
didn't
him.
understand it.
Yeah,
I
I got
didn't
it like...
understand how the Toman head... I think he was looking for the section of the portal stone that... You know, because he talks about, like, one is a destination and the other section is a realm, like a world.
Yeah.
He's looking at the destinations.
Which world, and then which portal
and
stone
then
in
which
that world.
portal realm.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's looking for their overworld, which we're in, and he's looking for how they Varen had described it to Rand in all the chats they had about the portal stone, is like they point to each other. So he's going on, and my understanding of it, I could be completely missing this, that Toman Head is that way. So he knows the waste is over there to the east, and he's looking for something that's going to be to the direction of the waste. But that's when Ruach steps in, and he's like, oh yeah, that and that are symbols that we know from Ruidian. Like, it's something from the past that triggers it. And now he's, okay, cool. Well, we've got 2, but if I take us to the wrong one, we might be in the bottom of the ocean and we'll all die. So, Matt, what do you think?
Hey.
And Matt's like, well, there's only one way to sort this out. We've got to toss a coin or throw a dice. So Matt pulls out a golden Andorran crown. Can't remember which one.
He only carries Andorran crowns.
And grabs it in the air. And it's like, which one do you choose? And they choose. And it's like, yep, we're going with the lightning bolt one. We're going, I think it was to the one with the left, which in my head was the right direction. In my head, Ruidian was left.
That's the one you would have taken
right.
anyway.
Yeah, that left one. So Moiraine is freaked out at this. Like, how the hell? This kid is going to kill all of us. Like, are you sure about what you're doing? And Rand is like, enough. Like, you have to trust me. We're going to do this. And I'm like, but what? There's a whole army. There's mules, there's pack horses. There's like, how are you going to do this? And he pulls out the little Buddha statue with a sword crossed around his leg. And I think it was like a green stone. And he's like, I found this in the hold. And the minute he found it, he knew what it was. But this is a powerful Ungreal, was it? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if it's a sangreal. I think it's just a plain Ungreal.
No, it's just a plain Ungreal.
Plain old Ungreal, yeah.
And that's why he knew he could leave Galandor there to keep sort of a third eye on those guys, let them do their jobs. And Rand then takes it and he tells Ruach, get everyone in as close as possible. Matt is at that point like, oh, well, I've died 100 lives, so I might well die for 900 more. What is it going to do? Maybe I get some memories back. Who knows? And Egwene is shitting herself. Moiraine is shitting herself just as much. And Rand says, hold on to your butts.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
We're paraphrasing.
And he gets the light that's always behind him and the flows, and then he starts channeling through the Ungreal, and it becomes more and more and more and more, and you could feel it. And everyone has got a shimmer and a shake, and Rand pulls power to the max, and they are traveling, or they are teleporting. Something is
All
happening.
of reality disappears.
Yes. It's a typical day.
So not an incredibly vast chapter. They leave. They look for the portal stone. He gives them the plan. They all object to his plan, but he still does it. And at the flip of a coin, decides in which direction, because Matt has luck. The end.
But Rand also picks the right symbol. He gets Matt to flip the coin, and then he puts his hand on one of the symbols. And when Matt's got the coin, caught, he goes, "This is the one you picked, isn't it?" And Matt goes, "Yeah, how did you do that?" And Rand says,
I know
"Works for me
shit.
too."
He also chatted with Varen about it. He chatted with Celine about it. He learned a lot. I suppose he read up about it as well. Like, he's been doing his homework.
He has.
Literally sitting in his home castle stone, reading
That's actually
tons of books.
a great point. I love that Rand is doing, and you touched on this last episode as well, Joe, like how Rand figured stuff out by just reading the books. Like, he didn't need more Rand. And here there's like loads of stuff that he's figuring out. That story from the peddler that described the city with like a stone similar to it, he knew that rang true, and therefore could trust in it. And like he's connecting dots and like reading, it seems like voraciously, every bit of information that he can, which, luckily this specific sheep herder learned to read. You can't underestimate the importance of Tam's education of Rand. Which is great, because at this point I'm not sure that Matt can read. He certainly seems averse to it. But
even the fact that Lan told Rand that he's been to the Aiel Waste, there is no cities. There is no such thing, so that can't be true. And Rand was like, "Appreciate your comment, but trust in me."
Back in your lane.
Lan.
When I need something stabbed, I'll call you. Jokes. Now, I also like that Lan and Rand are sort of like, what I'm going to assume is that they are still doing their daily sort of like practicing with the sword and all that sort of stuff, because there is some point here in Tier where it is mentioned that they do have daily drills and stuff. So I like the fact that, like when Rand talks about the honor and the duty in going back to the Two Rivers to defend it, Lan just pipes up, Thom and Juilin. Yeah, I dig it. Did you guys also notice the Portal Stone chapter icon?
Yes,
I did. Mine is a portal stone.
Yeah, bit of a spoiler, RJ. Come on.
Yeah, some of them are a bit meh, but this one's pretty clear.
Yeah, when I started the chapter and I saw they're leaving, and then the chapter icon is a portal stone, it's like, okay, cool. So they're gonna go through a portal stone now. Next chapter.
New icon on the next chapter as well.
Yeah. I like the fact that Rand is out in front, like he's the leader. He's like a literal leader. Not, riding in the middle or in the back somewhere. Like he's
in a cart or a carriage, or being carried by servants.
You love bringing up those carts. Or an apple cart.
Chariot.
He genuinely seems to be having like a nice time, like just riding out in front there, enjoying the fresh air until reality comes crashing home again. Did we mention Matt's horse?
No,
Pips.
I wanted to. Pips. Yeah, you mentioned all the names except Pips.
Yeah, the one horse that does make it to the end.
Oh, does he? And Bella, of course, as well.
In my mind,
I
Bella
don't
makes
know.
it to
I
the
just
end.
set myself up. But I like Rand's description of it. It's like a totally nondescript horse, but it at a second glance you would notice the deep chest and the blah blah blah. And Rand even says he bets this horse would probably match both his own, which is like the finest Tairen stock, and Mandab for speed and endurance.
Yeah.
And it's just like another little nod to Matt's dad's horse trading ability, rubbing off on his son, and Matt specifically picking a nondescript horse that is also super fast and has a lot of endurance, like just another feather in Matt's cap.
And a little bit shaggy, like just a
like
average farm horse looking like Matt.
Yeah, and Rand sort of wonders, like, I wonder why Matt is even coming here. Maybe friendship? Just another one of those, like, okay, cool, they are still friends. Maybe, Rand is actually considering that Matt is coming along because they are still friends. But yeah, Rand's horse's name, he says, it's Jane Fastrider's horse. It's the same name. But boyish fancies had no place in his life now. Like he had to put that sort of boyish innocence behind him because he's assuming his duty that's heavier than a mountain.
Yeah. Well, 5 minutes ago, he just threatened to hang a High Lord, so definitely boyish innocence.
And meant it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Matt never looks at Moiraine directly, only out of the corner of his eye. He really doesn't want anything to do with Aes Sedai. Also enjoyed Rand making Moiraine stew on purpose. Like he even thinks to himself, let it be her turn. Like he is antagonizing her actively. Rand wishes he knew what Moiraine was planning. So he knows that she's planning something. But the playing field has definitely been leveled because he's surprising her now. Like all the talk in like the previous chapters or earlier in the book where he's talking about I have to surprise everybody. Nobody can know what I'm going to do. And he's very much succeeding in keeping Moiraine on her toes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's it, I promise.
All right. Are you sure?
I am. Are you ready to roll, Joe? Because next up is chapter 23, Beyond the Stone. Take it away.
And blam! We're in the threefold land, bitches. Finally! Thank you for this chapter, Moritz. I couldn't wait. I was so glad. And the ground is tilting under everyone's feet. They're still stumbling from the jarring interdimensional portal travel. And the mules are braying, and it's just awesome. Everything is great. And oh, the heat. That's the first thing that everybody notices. And we get a lot from Egwene's perspective in this as well. All the wetlanders instantly burst into profuse sweating. I love it. It's instantaneous. As they arrive, everybody just goes, water out of all pores. Except Lan, of course. He is unfazed by anything, ever. And we have a look, and they're right next to the portal stone, which by this point is so weathered you can't even tell it's a portal stone. There's only like 3 feet of it sticking out the ground. It's kind of tilted, and all the symbols have been worn off it. And if something can fuck with the portal stone, it's the waste. That's about the only thing. They're next to some jagged mountains that is described as some giant has cleaved them out of the earth with an axe. And in the valley below them is the city of Ruidian, encompassed in a mass of broiling, dense fog. And that is that city in the clouds that was mentioned earlier on. So spot on. Everyone is stoked. Rand, except Rand, of course, he collapses to his knees. That little fat man, Angril, has driven its sword into the palm of his hand. He's been squeezing it so tightly, and it wasn't quite enough strength. It wasn't strong enough. Moiraine mentions this. I think he came close here to burning himself out completely. But whatever, it worked. They're there. Moiraine gives him some crap about it and tells him, like, you can't take any chances. And he tells her, I don't take any chances. That's Matt's department. Like, you've got to be certain about everything. And he's like, woman, I am certain about things. And I knew this was going to happen. I've researched this and I've done it. Moiraine tells him,
look,
like,
I'm right.
Yeah,
we
are.
took portal stones, and here we are at Ruidian today.
Yeah, exactly. Can't fault the man for not having planned this out. Look, a lot of it was, some of it was up to luck, as is everything in life. But he had a plan, and it worked. So there they are. She tells him that, look, you're exhausted because he looks like a dead man, and he's like collapsing, but Lan is right there next to him, holding him up, and keeping him steady. And Moiraine decides that, listen, he needs healing. And she tells him, like, look, this is not like being tired. Being tired from channeling and being tired from running around all day is, you're still going to feed it after healing. And she just grabs his head and channels and heals him. And he pulls away from her afterwards, telling her, ask, woman. Like, I'm not some dog that you can do and order around and do whatever you want with. And interestingly, Lan says nothing about it. He doesn't chide him for speaking to Moiraine like that. So what we're
Yeah.
talking about, this relationship getting stronger and stronger.
Exactly.
He's totally on Rand's side at this moment. I mean, he wasn't there in
Mhm.
the stone. He went off to go look after Nynaeve. Here he's 100% on Rand's side. But yeah, doesn't chide him at all.
I think Moiraine at this point in time has to realize that she is not the Dragon Reborn. She acts like she is the Dragon Reborn. She needs to just pipe it down just a notch.
I mean, obviously you're going whole hog for the comedic effect. She doesn't think that she is the Dragon Reborn, but she certainly thinks that she can just tell him what to do, that she is in complete control of the Dragon Reborn, which she is learning the hard way. She is not.
No.
And I think the more that Rand is sort of, doing his own thing, the more worried she would be, and the more she would maybe be like, here we don't have her point of view, but I bet what she's thinking is, I need to remind him that I can heal him, I can be there for him, like, and just sort of acting without even thinking to ask for permission.
Mm-hmm.
But Rand is pushing back.
He puts her in her place,
which is great for him
right away. And yeah, the fact that he gets no pushback from Lan is also another point. Yeah, that he is in charge. And that she's got to like learn her place slowly but surely. The Aiel around them, they realize, like, after this little interaction, that everyone's still standing there. The Aiel have gone completely silent, and they're looking up at the sides of the valley that they're in, where there are these two camps on either side of the mountain, full of Aiel that have veiled themselves or are in the process of veiling themselves. Like, sorry guys, hey, because now you got to imagine that what these Aiel were just hanging out on the sides of the mountains, and bloop, an army magically pops up in the middle of, in between both of these camps out of nowhere. But the silence is broken by 4 wise ones approaching them, and one of them speaking, "The peace of Ruidin be on you, like no blood shall be spilt here," and kind of everything kind of relaxes just a little bit. It is Amis and her buddies. Sienna, no, this is pronunciation time. Sienna and Elayne and Bayer, I'm going to say.
I always said Bear.
Yes, I know, but because of the other 2 maidens, Bane and Triad.
Yeah.
Because it would be Bane. If you put an R at the end of it, it would be Bear. That's also what I got. But I think it's Bayer. I'm going to go, because bear just sounds funny to me. Like she's not a bear. But anyway.
Like grizzly bear.
Grizzly bear, black bear, whatever. So
I'll look up the pronunciation while you
go for it, please. Get back on us. So with that announcement, the Aiel that came from Tyr, now through the Pool of Snow, they separate into their clans again. So now they've done they were up there by their societies when they were in Tyr, but now they separate again into their clans and start heading back to their separate camps that are there, and back to their homelands or their home septs as well. Avienda as well. But she's walking away, but she gets called back. "Not you, Avienda. You will stay." And she's just frozen right in her tracks, like, "Oh, God damn it!"
Everything.
You could so close.
I can just see her trying to sneak away in the background, all nonchalant. But no, she gets called back immediately. Ruach goes to greet Amis, and obviously this is his wife now, and they have a very, very touching and romantic and poignant moment. And she also sends in love from my sister wife, she says. So we get a mention there of Ruach's other wife. I looked it up. Her name is Lian, just an Lian. So yeah,
she's Avienda's aunt.
I didn't look up that much. That's more
Something
than I
like
got.
that. Avienda, when she talks about Amis after Egwene's dream, she says her aunt is her sister wife or something like that.
All right. Yeah, there was a lot in this chapter. I'm gonna, just go over the main points. Turns out that Amis and the others were expecting them on this spot on this very day, and that's what was in the letter to Moiraine, to command her, mind you, to come here today and be here at this spot. Amongst other things that we don't know what else was in that letter, but this was one of those things.
Remember that letter? There was something in it that annoyed Moiraine. When she reads some of it to Avienda, they could tell there was something in there that...
I think it was the
pissed her
tone
off.
of the letter to command her to come here, not some
Yeah.
other information, but definitely like, hey, come here now
Yeah.
on this day at this time. We'll be waiting for you, ordering her
Mhm.
around. And then we also notice that 2 men have come up from each camp, or come down, I suppose, from each camp. An elder man, Hiren. I'm gonna say Hiren. He's Rock's buddy. They seem very, very close to each other, and they greet each other very fondly. And then there's a younger man. Dun dun dun. Couladin. And everybody is pointedly ignoring him. I love it how they don't even register that he's there. Now, Hiren has come there, and he's got no weapons on him, and he's just got his belt knife, as I suppose is typical there. It's like wearing shoes to other normal people. But Couladin is fully armed to the teeth, and yeah, like the way like just everyone's ignoring him, and it's obvious because he's a dick. No one likes him, and it's clear.
Fucking dipshit.
Again, from the writing, the way that his character is written from day one, this is the person you don't like. Right, got it,
Yeah.
Robert. All right, we got you.
Big neon sign.
Exactly. So the 2 camps that are camped on either side are the Tardad, which is Ruox, and then the Shido. So here's our first mention of the Shido. It's like it's within 3 lions, Shido and Couladin. Well, obviously because he is Shido himself, and there's trouble in the air. You can cut the tension with a knife, with one of the millions of knives in that valley at this moment.
Is it in the previous chapter, Joe, where Ruach makes a comment about the Shido? Like he talks about like how the clans do fight between each other, especially those Shido, or something. Like, he makes like a sort of offhanded comment about how, yeah, we'll fight those guys from time to time because they are douchebags.
Yeah, it sounds like something that may have been mentioned previously, like, you know, offhand between them. They will talk about like, oh, don't be sneaky like a Shido or something.
Yeah, they're set up to be, of all these cool people, the least cool.
Yeah, they are by far the least cool. Lan lays down some Aiel knowledge because there's a bunch of conversations going on and some interactions that may seem strange, but apparently Hiren had come there to protect Ruach and the others when they arrived from the Shido, and that is strange because there at Ruidian there's no violence. There's the peace of Ruidian. And this kind of be like, it would have been insulting if they had mentioned it out loud. There's all these customs and weird customs in general that the Aiel have that Lan kind of explains to us, to them, to Moiraine as well, and to everyone else, but to us as the readers. So we get a little bit of knowledge in there. And Moiraine promises to get some more knowledge of him. She's like, this is something I've neglected, and she admits it here, Moritz, that she knows nothing about the Aiel and that she'll have to pick Lan's brain about this much later to get more info. And he's just standing behind them, like giving them, okay, this means this, that is happening here. So it's like, thanks.
And when she looks at Lan and she's sort of like, you've never said anything about this. He's like, you never asked.
Yeah. So he's been around Aes Sedai too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never asked me. Because he has spent time there before. And he looks quite at home. Everyone else is sweating profusely and he's absolutely fine.
They all know who he is.
Yeah, they know who he is as well. But we'll get there. He also gives them some water. He's like, listen, this heat will kill you if you're not used to it. Like, I'm used to it. Gives them some water to drink, wets some cloths for them to wrap around their heads. Also, Matt and Rand are doing the same thing at the same moment. Everybody's freaking out about the heat. I like there's a line there that says that her feet felt like, or Egwene's feet felt like sausages sizzling inside her shoes. So she's wearing shoes on top of us, and it's still.
That's a Matt line from the next chapter.
Oh, right. Sorry. I did read ahead, obviously. So finally, Ruach turns and addresses who I'm going to call Mr. Moody Pants and asks him if the Shido lack a clan chief. Turns out they do. He died. Their clan chief is, he's actually dead. So another candidate, Muradin, has entered Ruidian at the moment. He's inside at this very moment. And if he fails, Couladin says he will enter, and the wise ones quickly put him in his place, say, no, you won't. You did not ask us, and you're a shit person. So, no. They obviously say you are flawed within, but even if you ask us, we are going to say no, because you are not fit candidate to be a clan chief.
Not clan chief material, I'm
not
sorry.
at all. He gets all huffy and angry and red in the face, but no one cares because he's a dick. So Amis asks for Rand. She said, there's one that came with you. I think Egwene at this point thinks it's her, but Rand steps forward. It's not you, Egwene. And Rand steps forward and he gives them this ancient greeting and salute where he puts his left foot forward and his hand on his knee, and he asks official permission to enter Ruidian, which surprises literally everyone. I'm sure Moiraine was surprised, although she did not show it, because she's just coolly watching everybody in this situation, analyzing everything with her Aes Sedai brain. Couladin is the most surprised of all, and he chimes in that he is an outsider. They tell him to shut up again and humiliate him a bit. And I'm thinking, but Egwene does mention at this point, like, this guy, because she's never seen an Aiel express so much emotion. Like, he is very rare amongst the Aiel, and she needs to keep an eye on this guy. Like, so she's pretty good at judging situations and people, and she's like, all right, I'm going to make a plan to keep an eye on this guy, and rightly so. But at this point, the four wise ones have a little, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And they're like, all right, they all agree Rand can enter Ruidian, and it's super fast decision. I mean, it's bloop, here I am, have some water. Hey, can I go to Ruidian? They go, yeah, okay, sure. And we find out later why as well. Rand at this point says that, because everyone's so shocked that he's allowed to enter, he says, well, my mother was Aiel. This shocks literally only Egwene, who's like, really? I knew Carrie Elthor.
Carrie Elthor?
Yeah. Like, I doubt she was Aiel. Like, somebody would have mentioned.
She was from Camelin.
Yeah, like people knew her, and nobody says that she was an Aiel. But Amis corrects him and says, actually, it was your father who was Aiel. So she already knows. Well, they all know, because they know a bunch of stuff. They knew everybody would be there on this day, so as Dreamwalkers, they know all the truth. Egwene later asks, like, who was his dad? And they say, like, listen, no, that's not our story to tell. That's Rand's, if he wishes. But then again, Rand doesn't know. But I'm sure he will soon enough. Just then, Matt scrambles up in between them all and tries to imitate Rand's bow.
Classic.
And he's also just like, hey, I want to go to Ruidian too. And they're like, what? No. You can't just come in here. Who the hell are you? You're not allowed. At this point, Couladin has just had enough of this bullshit. He's still standing there, by the way. And he promptly just tries to stab Matt to death with his spear. Right at the chest, but Amis channels with air and picks him up and throws him on the ground. Couladin, that is, Mr. Moody Pants, not Matt. So at this point, again, the wise ones, they send all of the Aiel men away. I say, Ruach, take over there, and all of them go. Matt, sorry, buddy, but no can do. You cannot. They are not keen on letting him go, but Matt is insistent. So again, the wise ones have a little chat amongst themselves, and there's a mention of the time of change. Elayne is here. They're referring to Rand, to Lan. And I'm just wondering if all of you other Afrikaans speakers read Ian Elayne here. Yeah. Like, literally, one alone, the man alone. Like, to our listeners, look it up in your Afrikaans language. But Ian Elayne is one alone. So they've all agreed now. Rand asks if Matt can come with as well. They're like, all right, everything's changing. All the old rules are being broken. And this is what Rand does. This is what the prophecies say anyway. So they're like, all right, whatever. Matt can go with Rand as well. So now they have all their permissions in order, and they got their visas for the trip. And they are told to leave their weapons behind, their food, and their water. Matt starts disarming himself, and it takes a long time. And it's the pile of knives that come out of this man's clothing impresses even the Aiel. The wise ones even look at him with raised eyebrows, like, holy shit, dude. Where did all these knives come from? He's making a little pile, and he pauses, and they keep looking at him, and he goes, oh, well, I forgot 2 more. And he pulls 2 more knives out of his boots. And he was like, oh, I forgot about those, like with a smile or one of those cheeky smiles in his face. But the Aiel wise ones just look at him with stone faces like, you can't bullshit us, bro. This is not happening. So there's the old pledges are made, like, oh, now they are pledged to Ruidian, and there's the process and the ceremony that they have to go through and things they have to say. But basically, now that you've been pledged, you are dead to us. We cannot see you. They kind of like lift their eyes above them, that they cannot speak to the dead until they return from Ruidian, when they will be once again alive, if they return. And be gone. So off they go. And Matt's little quip there is like, oh, all right, we have to go now. Well, I suppose the dead can talk to each other at least. And him and Rand go on their little side adventure, running off into the waste and down to Ruidian.
Matt was hoping that they could ride the horses on the way there because it's a far way there.
Yeah, and it's like 4,000 degrees, it's the surface of the sun. So once the boys have left, Egwene approaches Amis again to introduce herself formally this time. But this is now official women's business, again, in this part of the world, same rules apply. Old Ian Aiel must go. He cannot stay here. She kind of like forestalls him, like, we'll talk about this in a second once all the men have buggered off. So the Aiel know of Land. This is what we talk about. They are aware of his legend, that he is a man who will fight, like, strangely specific, like a man who will fight this losing battle to the death against the shadow. But they are surprised that he serves an Aes Sedai, that he serves Moiraine. Like that they did not see coming. Which I think gives Moiraine a little bit of a boost in their eyes. I mean, they are respectful of Moiraine, but as an equal, not as someone that's superior to them. No. At this point, Baer calls Avienda over. And I'd literally forgotten she was there.
Yeah.
It was, oh, yeah, shit, Avienda's there as well. And tells her, like, listen, now it is time. Now the men have gone and you're back. It is time. Your time as a maiden of the spear is over. It's time to throw away your dolls and become a real woman now. And all of that they give him. And she is pissed and defiant. But there's no, it's like trying to deny the Aes Sedai. You don't deny the wise ones, even less. This is when Egwene realizes that Avienda can channel. And she feels it in her. Like she's one of those, not only can she be taught to, but she was born with the spark. And then she looks at the other wise ones and she feels the same connection with Amis and Melaine. And then realizing, of course, that the other two can't channel. And then also the realization of Amis's face. Like her hair is all gray, but she looks so young. And that's that agelessness that comes from all the channeling. And all the pieces start falling into place again for her to come to that realization.
She feels it about Moiraine as well.
Yes, all right.
That
kinship. And then she like connects that kinship that she's always felt with her with. That's how women who can channel know other women can channel as well.
Yeah.
They also are onto Moiraine, the wise ones, because when they call Avienda back and talk about the channeling, or we read about the channeling, like that, you're disappointed you couldn't grab this one and take her back to the White Tower. And Moraine's like, damn, she would have been awesome. Like, I did have plans for her to go back to the White Tower. But no, not going to happen. She is ours, and she will become a wise one, whether she likes it or not. So anyway, and like they won't let her or allow her to be coddled by the White Tower. And Egwene is thinking, coddled? Like, no, they will. The threefold land will beat the softness out of her. Not going to go to that White Tower where they sleep on beds in air conditioned rooms and whatever, all that cock. So the wise ones make Avienda throw away her weapons as if they are trash. They take some away and they throw them, and you could see Avienda like flinching every time it happens. And Egwene actually pipes up like, you guys are being unnecessarily cruel. And they're like, no, she's got to see these things as trash because they're rubbish from now on. And they make her throw away all of her knives and her spears and everything else. And they say that even when she comes back, or if she comes back alive from Ruidian, she will have to burn them, and all the metal that's from the weapons will have to be melted down and be made into things that are not weapons, like belt buckles and things like that. She's not even allowed to make a cutting knife, like a butcher's knife out of it. Like nothing that can be used as a weapon. Like really strip her down to bare bones and literally strip her again, because once she has gotten rid of all of her weapons, she has to take off even her clothes. Again, this is the other option about Rand and Matt could go into Ruidian fully clothed as they were, but of course Avienda has to get naked for it. After she gets instructions from the wise ones as well on where to go and what to do, obviously, like when you get in there are some concentric rings of Ta'angril, as we know. Glass pillars, I think they're described as. That this is where she needs to go, into the center of the city. And well, I mean, off she goes. She just, standing there. I mean, Egwene is also very impressed with the fact that she's standing there barefoot on this burning rock, on this burning ground, and doesn't flinch because she's hard, man. As are all the Aiel.
Mm-hmm.
So with that out of the way, and everyone running down there, we turn to Egwene then, who is eager to get going with her training. She's like, all right, can we now start my training? Like, the men are gone. We've dealt with this. She's just eager to get on. But the wise ones are like, no. We've got other things to worry about at the moment. First things first, they were worried. Yeah, we talk about Couladin again and the Shido. And they were concerned that when Rand arrived, that Couladin was going to try and kill him, like instantaneously, as soon as he found out what was going on. And that is the reason they acted so quickly and agreed to send him to Ruidian. They knew it had to be done because they suspect strongly, not 100% sure that he is he who comes with the dawn. So the odds are high, but they wanted to get him out of there as soon as possible before some Shido put a spear in him, which is why they acted so quickly. So they decide then, they're like, all right, Egwene, and Moiraine, let's come with us now. We'll go back to the tents. We will offer you shade and water, obviously, which is the custom and just common sense in this godforsaken land. And they head up back to the tents where there is blissful shade. And we get it in like a little view inside the tent, and there's thick carpets and cushions with tassels and stuff. So the wetlanders' image of these savages dispelled. Sure, they're intense, but even the Aes Sedai travel intense when they travel, and inside is luxurious, so not savages. And we get a good look at our first Gai'Shane, and then we get about 3 pages of Gai'Shane stories, which I'm not going to go into.
Thank God.
Sighs of relief.
And
The G-Ito, yes, but we get expression, and we get the G-Ito, of course, that's important, the honor and the duty, or honor and obligation, however you want to translate it.
Can we just say that if you're really into this, go and read that passage, then go and read it again, and go and read it again, and then you still won't understand it.
And then go Google it, because, But anyway, Gai'Shane, apparently the worst thing that can happen to you as an Aiel warrior is for you to be touched in battle. Not killed, not stabbed, just somebody reaching out and touching you. And immediately they just go, like if that happens in a battle, you just go, shit, throw everything down. It's like, tag, you're it. It's a great game. Yeah, so no one has to die. Like, killing is the easiest. The wise ones even say, like, a child can kill, like killing is easy. But to be able to touch an Aiel that's if in the full flows of their maneuvers, without using any weapons, is like the height of your skills. And if that happens, that's it, you Gai'Shane. And they have to serve meekly for 1 year and 1 day, and then they can go back, and they're just them fulfilling the honor and obligation. Enough about that. So then there's a whole bunch of talk again about Tela Anriad and dreamwalking in general, and Moiraine is of course there as well inside the tent, and she asks about, like, you sent me this letter, so you knew I would be here today. And Elayne lets slip that Moiraine has to enter Ruidian. Now, the other wise ones kind of cover up her slip for her, because all 4 of them, while only 2 of these wise ones can channel, all 4 of them are dreamwalkers. So they're all aware of what needs to happen. They've seen the future to a degree of certainty. It's not 100%. But in all of their visions, Moiraine had to enter Ruidian. And it's kind of a thing, a bad thing, that she knows about it. They don't want to give too much information away about the future, so the slip is kind of important. Moiraine also starts breaking down the old tongue, showing her knowledge and level of understanding of what Aiel means, what Gen Aiel means, and that's when she gets to that point, like translating Gen Aiel as meaning the only true Aiel. The wise ones are dead silent and stony faces, and looks on their faces like, do not talk about this anymore. But yeah, there's a bunch of that as well, which you can go read in the chapter. Egwene, again, please, can we get started with my training here? I really need to get going. I want to learn as much as I can. And they postponed it. They're like, all right. You've got the keenness. All right, we've got you. We understand. It's like, I think it was Amis who was as keen as her when she was younger. I can't remember which one of the wise ones was just keen to get going. It's like, right, we understand your keenness, but we'll get into it this evening later on. All right, we've got some shit to do. At that point, Moiraine promptly just stands up and goes, all right, well, you've seen me go to Ruidian, and whips off her clothes as well, takes off her dress and her boots and everything, and she heads out of the tent off to Ruidian. I'm thinking, this is very similar to the Twisted Stone doorway. Like, everyone's just instantaneously allowed in at the same time. I mean, Rand, Matt, Moiraine is there now. I mean, Avienda, they've been waiting a long time. So she is pure Aiel, and it's her duty to go. But it's like, as you arrive, just like literally everybody into Ruidian as fast as they can. And she also, Moiraine asks at that point, like, look, if Lan tries to follow me, stop him, because if he sees me going, he's definitely going to try and stop me. He's going to come after me. Something's going to happen. Not that they could do anything about it anyway, if Lan decided to go after her. But I suppose, she has to say this just in case. So off she goes as well. She's out the tent, running in the buff, in the 40-degree heat. I imagine even 50-degree heat. Celsius, that is, to our North American listeners. I don't know. What is that in Fahrenheit? Like 120 degrees Fahrenheit? So...
good guess.
Oh, well, thank you. I may be wrong.
You may be. I don't know.
There's also a mention here, like, because of things being so uncertain about the Dreamwalkers, like they know to a degree, and there's some things they just can't see. And Egwene asks them about this regarding the what happens in Ruidian, and she says there's some things in Tel'aran'rhiod that we can't see and places we can't go to. One of them is Ruidian. We can't go there in the world of dreams. The other is an Ogier steading, which was a surprise to me as well. I thought, that's cool. They just protected completely.
Same.
Yeah. And then there's another quote, and a few others, which, just tickled me. A few other places they can't go to. They don't mention them. Now, I'm going to go research this later on, definitely, because I have to know. Any ideas? Did you guys do any research on this?
No.
Didn't
Maybe
catch your
far
attention?
madding?
Because they got that tangrel that prevents... I'm wondering if Shael Ghul is one of those places.
Maybe. Stands to reason.
All right, that's the one place I thought of. I didn't think of farm adding because I'd forgotten about the non-channeling tangrel that they got. They got some massive tangrel in the middle of the city, right?
Yeah, but like channeling and channeling and Tel'aran'rhiod are two separate things. But someone that is warding an entire city against channeling might go as far as also warding it against other stuff.
In the steading, you can't channel. So
there's a correlation there.
Yeah, could be. Anyway, speculation abounds. And then Egwene pipes up, if she's like, should I go to Ruidian too? And they're like, don't be so foolish. And I'm thinking that's a pretty legitimate question. Like, literally everyone I came with is already in Ruidian except me. Like,
there was already a dude in there.
Yeah, like, it's a pretty reasonable question in my point of view, but the wise ones laugh at her, like they brush it off instantaneously. Like, you're being foolish. Forget about it. So Egwene again won't let go of this idea of training immediately for dreamwalking. So they're like, all right, listen, we're just going to give you a breakdown of the general gist of what Tel'aran'rhiod is and how it works and dreamwalking and all of that. And I'm going to break it down for you. And you got to sit here and listen and repeat everything back to me point by point, or else you will be tonight's Guy Shay and you will take over the duties of pot scrubbing, I imagine, because she's listening intently to what they're saying and thinking to herself, there's no way she's washing pots tonight. So that seems to be a general global phenomenon of training in the One Power and with Wise Ones and Aes Sedai. If you fuck up, you are scrubbing pots, much to Villy's relief. And that is how the chapter ends.
Not much to Villy's relief. The spies.
Now, that was a long chapter. I think on the Kindle it said it's like 49 minutes. So I did not mention anything. I did not mention everything there. I'm certain there's some points that Morris is looking down at his notes and up at me, just waiting for a turn.
I'm crossing off notes that I made that you've already covered.
All right. Well, when you find one that I haven't, let us know. Villy?
On
top of your head?
Oh, no, I really enjoyed that chapter. I mean, it is very interesting to read more about the Aiel, for sure. There's a lot to absorb in that. And we can have an entire 3-hour discussion just about that on its own. And feel that we actually should do that at some point in time. Because there is just this episode of 3 hours has got content that can fill 9 hours in terms of the introduction to new people. So I mean, I can carry on and I can harp on. So I'll leave it at that. But it's a great chapter. They are finally in the waste all of a sudden, very quickly.
Now the portal stones,
Hmm.
they are older even than the Age of Legends. So that portal stone was there before Ruidian.
Mm-hmm.
Did they build the city there because of the portal stone?
Very much potentially. I mean, you want to be able to travel there quickly, so it just makes sense.
They could travel.
Yeah.
With a capital T.
Mm.
Well, in the Age of Legends.
Yeah, in the Age of Legends.
But Ruidian was founded...
Stones?
Wasn't Ruidian founded
after the breaking?
After the breaking. Yeah.
During/after... Maybe founded after, because it was during the breaking that the Gen Aiel were tasked with taking all the Terangriel and stuff into the waste and safeguarding it and building the city. There was that one Aes Sedai that commanded them to do it.
Well, there's so much lore to go back into, And even earlier when you mentioned when Rand left the sword in the stone, and Narishma has to come back and get it, I'm going to really step in it if it's not Narishma. But talking again about the Black Tower and the Ashaman, like we haven't even got there yet, and that just reminded me of another thing coming up that is going to be awesome.
Yeah. I like that Egwene recognizes that Rand wasn't going to give up. Like when he said, okay, Matt's going to come with me, that he was going to dig in. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I also enjoyed Matt thinking like, oh, we're dead now. Does this maybe count? Maybe this could be, I was dead once, please?
Matt looking for the easiest way out.
Yeah, that would be too easy, Matt. I feel like maybe sometimes I pick on Egwene, but she can be so stroppy sometimes. Like, I mean, she's super pushy, obviously. Like, oh, I want to learn. Cool, okay, I get that. But then towards the end of the chapter, she makes the comment again, it's just not fair. You know, like, stop saying that. Boo fucking
young.
who?
She's young.
She's 18.
Yeah, that's a babe.
She's very young.
She acts like
She does. Oh, it's just like every time it happens, I'm like, Egwene, maybe it's because I expect more from her.
Yes.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Said Dad. Said Dad Moritz.
I think we've used that line on this podcast.
Definitely.
Probably more than once.
I used that with my son a week ago, or 10 days ago, somewhere around there. Like 10, I used that exact line, and I was fully aware. No, it didn't. But well, it had no outward effect. He's very Aes Sedai Serenity. But yeah, I was very aware of saying it when I said it. Like, I was like, all right, but now is the moment to say it.
Yeah, straight face, Jody. Straight face.
Straight face.
Yeah, great exposure to the Aiel there. Should we push on?
Yes.
You mentioned a 3-hour recording, Vil. It's been 3 hours and we've got another chapter to go.
Mm-hmm.
Another significant chapter.
Oh.
Chapter 24 is called Ruidian.
Hey.
Go figure. All right, so we join Matt and Rand, and they're already standing in front of that fog bank around Ruidian. Matt is feeling super hot, and this is why I knew it was a Matt line, Joe. He thinks his feet felt like cooked sausages in his boots. I highlighted it because it is such a cool example of how when Robert Jordan writes from a specific person's point of view, all their inner thoughts and everything is through that lens, and this is like a real sort of like Matt type of comment. Matt is obviously apprehensive about this fog, noting that the heat from the sun is not burning it off, and it's likely to be a thing of the One Power, his worst fear ever. But he tries to distract himself by bringing up Avienda, who he had seen running to the city in the buff, but Rand doesn't seem to have noticed her at all. Rand is totally preoccupied. So Matt suggests that they keep on going, and Rand asks him one last time if he's sure he wants to go on. And Matt tells him that he has to. And then he turns the question on Rand and says, why are you here? To which Rand responds, I have to be, Matt. I have to be. Matt thinks that maybe that's what the Aelfin tell everyone. Like maybe they're just telling everyone go to Ruidian. Like if you have to be in, I have to be here. But Rand says to him that the Aelfin never mentioned Ruidian to him.
Damn.
So this is Rand acting on his own sort of intelligence. So Matt vows to himself that the Elfin will see him again, and he will give them a piece of his mind, and they'll give him some more damn answers, which we know he tries to do here. So Rand just heads into the mist, and Matt follows, and it's super, super thick. He can't even see his own feet, and he sort of loses track of Rand. So he picks up the pace, and he steps out, and suddenly he's out of it, and he steps out right next to Rand in what seems to be this huge fog dome. Like there's a big open space in the middle of this fog with like a bluish tinge over it. What the space they step into seems to be a very ornate but incomplete city. So it's not like it's broken down or anything. It just looks like it was never finished. They see like a big fountain that has long since been dry, but Rand channels and the fountain starts working, like starts spurting out water, and then like a stream of water the thickness of Matt's leg comes out of this. I think it's like a fish statue into a bowl beneath it. And Matt just jumps straight into it, and he's just drinking deeply, and he's just soaking. He's basically drenching himself in water. He's so hot. But Rand seems totally preoccupied, and eventually Matt says to him, "Are you not going to drink something?" And Rand sort of snaps out of it, and he comes and he joins him. As Rand is sort of drinking, Matt steps out of the fountain and starts looking around at the empty buildings and the streets. And he actually feels a prickling between his shoulder blades as he observes, and I quote, "all those empty windows looking down on him, all those gap-toothed lines of forsaken stonework." And I just thought that was a very interesting choice of words there. I know that at some point, like, Lanfear is in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Rand and Asmodean, I'm pretty sure, have like a tussle in this space, and they each try and grab the access keys for the Coudenhall or something. But I just thought, like, you can't be Robert Jordan and use the word forsaken without there being some charge to it, But Matt's wishing for his knives when he thinks of the wise ones with whom he left all of his knives, and how one or more of those wise ones had channeled. And he thinks, burn me. If I could get shut of Aes Sedai, I'd never ask for another thing. So we've seen a couple sort of like lead-in statements and thoughts that bring us to the sort of climax here with Matt and the Eilfin. Rand steps up and he says that he's going to head towards the heart of the city. And as he sort of leaves, the fountain stops sprouting water. And Rand says there's a vast ocean of good water down there, but he's not going to waste his time here now to try and make all the fountains work. They can have another drink when they come out again on their way out. And Matt says, well, lead on. And as they walk, Matt's sort of wondering what could be hidden inside these empty buildings. Furniture, maybe gold, knives. They wouldn't rust away. Matt, leave the knives in the Forsaken cities alone, okay?
Just he can't help himself.
There must be some. Oh, maybe there's knives here. Daggers. So as they walk, they eventually reach this like large, great plaza. It has a huge tree in it, and then what looks like a number of tall, thin glass columns nearby, arranged in concentric circles, which we obviously know what they are. And a bunch of ungreals just sort of strewn about. They don't look like to be carelessly discarded, but they seem to be placed all around, equally spaced even, I think he says how much distance is actually between them. One of the ungreal, and he thinks it's an ungreal because one of them is a black metal spear. He doesn't say anything more about it except that it's balancing on one point, which leads him to believe that it is an ungreal or something of the power. And I thought that's interesting. Like, I don't think they ever explain that the Ashandarai or whatever it is, sort of like
I pronounce it
something like that. His bladed spear. They never say that it's made out of metal. I think it's made from a material that he doesn't recognize or something. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that Matt would notice a black spear that he very soon will be wielding. If not that one very much like it. Rand pauses beside the access keys to the Coudenhall. Like they are lying right there. Yeah. Oh, found you. Cool. Let's take on the creator. They're just lying there, and he sort of half bends to touch them, but then he backs away so quickly. He snaps away from them so quickly that Matt almost can't notice it. Like he realizes what he's doing, and he's like, shit, can't touch these things, or maybe realizes what they are. But they keep walking towards the great tree and the columns, and eventually Rand names the tree for what it is. It's the Avendasaura tree. And they walk up to it, and they actually go and sit below it, and they reference one of the stories about a guy that sat below it for so long, but they actually feel the effects of it, and they do feel calm and fulfilled and content, which is nice for them.
Yeah.
You
A little
for
break.
a change.
Yeah.
But eventually Rand has to get up again to go to the glass columns, and he tells Matt that he needs to go alone. Matt puts up a little bit of protest, but eventually pulls out a coin, which he says, this is becoming my lucky coin. So this is probably the coin that he flipped for the portal stones.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the one he flipped for going into the doorway, because I think that coin he actually flipped towards that servant that heard him muttering.
Oh, right.
But if it is the one from the portal stone, then it is a Tarvalon mark, or like a crown. It's a flame on the one side and a head on the other side.
That's right.
He says that for a flame, he'll go in with Rand, and for a head, he'll stay out. So he tosses the coin, but somehow, weird, he misses the catch, and it sort of bounces off his hand and bounces twice on the ground and eventually lands on its edge. So Matt blames the coin landing on its head on Rand's, strong Taveran nature, which I thought was rich. But just then the coin does fall over with the head showing, which means that Matt has to stay out. And it's implied that Rand is sort of channeled here. Matt straight up asked him, did you just... And I think that he did.
Yeah.
Because Rand knows that Matt has to stay out. So Matt says, okay, fine, go in, but don't think I'll come in after you either. So you best be careful. And Rand just grins at him and he says, I wouldn't think that of you, Matt. Is Rand grinning here because he knows Matt will say, I'm not coming in after there to save you, but he wouldn't be able to stop himself. He's always coming to the aid of his friends.
He's no bloody hero.
Yes. So when Matt's putting up this fake protest, Rand is like, okay, Matt, don't worry. I would never think of that. I would never think that of you.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you.
So Rand has to repeat, no matter what, do not come in here, because the people that go in there either come out as a clan chief or die or never seen again.
Or they come out
or
mad.
come out mad.
Yeah.
So Rand walks in and he basically vanishes, and Matt sort of plays it always, trick of the eye. But yeah, he very much does vanish. And Matt sort of grumbles to himself about not going in to pull Rand out of the coals again. Rand is the one that can channel. He can channel his way out of it. And then immediately, I'll give him an hour. After all that, it's like, okay, after an hour, maybe I'll go in. Like immediately reverting to the hero role. So he sort of walks back to the plaza and he spots a red stone doorway, much like the one in Tyr, also with the oddly shaped, edges that follow in on themselves. But this one has got sort of extra markings on it that he can't quite remember. Were these triangular markings on the one in Tyr? Don't know. But he reckons that he gave Rand an hour. He can go and make some demands on the other side of that door and come back well within that time. What difference can one more time make? Huge difference, Matt, but cool.
All the difference.
So he steps through. And as he comes out on the other side, he immediately realizes this place is different. So unlike the Aelfin room that he stepped into, which I think was perfectly round, here everything is all angles. So it's a star-shaped room, star-shaped columns. And they all have these like strips of light running along the edges. Joe's speaking to your comments about like what the lighting is like on that side. That might not be magic. I imagine like LED lights, running up
LED strips.
Could be because I watched an episode of Grand Designs with similar lighting recently, but... But the floor is dusty stone, and he notices it's quite dusty. No one has been here for a very long time. Pause. Probably around 3,000 years. If Rhuidean was established around about the time of the breaking, and no one had been there, because the Aiel clan chiefs and stuff, they wouldn't be going through that doorway.
No.
So these Angreal have all been standing here. So when this Eilfin shows up now and he says, yes, a very long time, it is thousands of years.
Yeah, must be.
Because this stone doorway has been locked away behind the confines of Rhuidean and no one has been stepping through it. So Matt had this thought. No one has been here in a very long time. And then a voice, as he's about to turn to go back to the thing, a voice echoes his exact thought and says, a very long time. So I feel like this Eilfin read his mind, or absorbed that thought from him somehow. So Matt spins around to see this Eilfin man standing there. He's taller than an Aiel, and sinewy, much like the Eilfin, but with shoulders too wide for his narrow waist, and white skin like the finest paper. No yellow robes this time, just a pale leather set of straps studded with silver crisscrossing his chest and arms, wearing like a black kilt. It's quite a weird looking thing they're describing here.
Interesting fashion choice.
Yeah. Big, almost colorless eyes with short reddish hair sort of standing up like a brush cut. And he leans towards Matt while inhaling deeply, showing sharp teeth. So very odd looking being. And Matt thinks he looks like a fox about to leap on a cornered chicken. So here's the fox likening that we will henceforth refer to when we talk about the snakes and the foxes. It's too hard for me to remember each time. This is how I remember it. The snake people are not the ones called eels. The snake people are the Eilfin. The fox people are the Eilfin. So that's how I remember it. And that's too much work. So snakes and foxes. So this is now the fox people. So Foxman asks him about iron, musical instruments, and devices for making light, which sounds very familiar to Matt. And he says, obviously, he didn't bring any of those things. But even though this place is different, these guys are asking the same questions. So, okay, maybe he'll see this through and see where it goes. So the Eilfin man is eager for Matt to follow him, and he's sort of like walking backwards, coaxing him to the corridor. And he says, I will take you to where you need to go to find what you need. So Matt follows him. And it's only when they get to the corridor that the Eilfin man then turns around and turns his back on Matt. But while they're walking down this long corridor, he's constantly looking back to see if Matt is still there. It's this weird magic hallway, right? Like it stretches out to infinity in front of him. They walk past a doorway on his side, and when he looks through the doorway, he sees the redstone door with his own footprints coming away from it. When he looks behind him, the corridor also stretches to infinity, not to the room he just walked out of. So lots of bending of reality here. And they keep walking, and they actually, they pass loads of these doorways, and they all look the same. And Matt's starting to feel a bit of regret about coming in here, and he says to this guy, never think that you've caught a babe in your snare. If you try to cheat me, I will have your hide for saddlecloth. The Eilfin man seems shocked, and he sort of like adjusts his straps, and Matt realizes that leather could be made from human skin. Like it has a human quality to it. So that threat of Matt's like, I'll have your hide for saddlecloth, you probably took quite literally.
Yeah.
No, don't do that with my skin.
That the Foxman makes a point of adjusting that of his straps to make Matt look at them like, yeah, you'll have my hide, I'll have yours, buddy.
I'll have yours, friendo. But they keep walking for ages. So Matt reckons probably for longer than the hour that he'd given Rand, when suddenly the corridor just ends in another chamber. You could have sworn that it stretched on forever just a second ago, but he's been sort of focused on this guy. So anyway, now there's a chamber there. He looks behind him, and it's just this endless corridor with no doorways off to the side. And he looks back again, and Foxman is gone. So he figures, hell, I've come this far, might as well go. So he walks into the room, another star-shaped room, but with a pillar or like a pedestal at the end of each one of those points. And he's sort of scanning the room, and he looks around. There's no one in there, and he turns around, and suddenly the door is gone as well. And he turns back, and suddenly there are 8 people on these pedestals, 4 males and 4 females. The women have longer hair at the back, also like sort of pointy hair on top, and then long at the back, wearing white blouses. These men have wider straps than what the guide had. They also have gold studs, and they each have 2 bronze knives on their chest, sort of like, sheathed on their chest. And one of them says, "Speak. By the ancient treaty, here is agreement made. What is your need? Speak." Matt realizes, okay, this is different from the snake people. So he just comes out with a question: who's the daughter of the 9 moons, and why do I have to marry her? And they're just silent. And Matt immediately loses his cool, hothead that he is, and he goes, "You're supposed to answer. Burn your bones to ash. Answer me now. Who is the daughter of the 9 moons? Why do I have to marry her? How will I die and live again? What does it mean that I have to give up half the light of the world?" Dead silence. And here is like the last section of the chapter, and I'm actually just going to read it straight from the book because a lot happens in these moments. So Matt goes, "I have no intention of marrying, and I have no intention of dying either, whether I'm supposed to live again or not. I walk around with holes in my memory, holes in my life, and you stare at me like idiots. If I had my way, I would want those holes filled, but at least answers to my questions might fill some in my future. You have to answer, done," one of the men growled, and Matt blinked. "Done? What was done? What did he mean?" "Burn your eyes," he muttered. "Burn your souls. You are as bad as Aes Sedai. Well, I want a way to be free of Aes Sedai and the power, and I want to be away from you and back to Ruidian. If you will not answer me, open up a door and let me—" "Done," another man said, and one of the women echoed, "Done." Matt scanned the walls, then glared, turning to take them all in, standing up there on their pedestal, staring down at him. "Done? What is done? I see no door. You lying goat-fathered—" "Fool," a woman said in a whispered growl, and others repeated it. "Fool, fool, fool. Wise to ask leave-taking when you set no price, no terms. You fool not to first agree on the price. We will set the price." They spoke so quickly you could not tell which said what. "What was asked will be given. The price will be paid." "Burn you," he shouted. "What are you talking?" Utter darkness closed around him. There was something around his throat. He could not breathe. Air. He could not. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah,
There you have it.
that's a cliffhanger to leave it at. A massive cliffhanger. Yo.
But there he's saying, like, I would have those holes filled. Done. I'd be being away from the Aes Sedai and the power. Done. I would be out of here and back to Ruidian. Whew. Luckily you mentioned that, because they even say, "Good thing you ask for leave taking when you set no price, set no terms. We'll set the price." And then he's hung.
Don't spoil next week.
I'm gonna go read those chapters right after this. I can't do this now.
It's so good, hey?
It's like, man, this is one of the standout chapters for me that I can remember. There's, like I mentioned, there's always some chapters that I can explicitly remember because they are so standout. And Ruidian, and they're getting there and how quick it happens. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, go. It's like, no
That's
playing
so
around.
Fast.
There's no, let's have tea and talk about your travels. Let me introduce you to the Shido. Hi, my name is Shiloh. I'll be your waiter.
But I was shocked as well. Like, everything has happened so quickly. I mean, I went and I counted the Into the Doorway when Matt goes to see the Elfin was chapter 15. This is 9 chapters later, and he's in the Elfin.
Yeah.
Like, I'd forgotten that it was so on top of each other. That portal stone thing really threw me for a loop. Like, I'd forgotten that they use a portal stone to go straight to Ruidian, make a deal with the wise ones, run off to the city. Next time you meet up with Rand and Matt, they're in the city. They're going, and Matt is in the doorway. You know, like everything is happening. Bang, bang, bang.
I thought that they took the ways, thinking now, like, okay, how are they going to get? Because they didn't travel there. There wasn't a horse riding over the spine of the world and a long track with many things. I thought they would be taking the ways, but I think probably because Perrin and them took the ways. But
the whole waste section to me is a blur, because I know that there is a part where they are traveling with, or they meet up with a trader who is Asmodean in disguise, and Lanfear is there, and like that whole interaction happens. So there is some travel
isn't
in
that
the waste.
when Rand goes back to Ruidian?
Shrug.
Yeah.
Yeah. My point is, all of that is a blur. I can't remember anything. I didn't expect them to use a portal stone to get there instantaneously. Even the ways would have taken them some time to travel by. But the fact that they can now just use this portal stone to get there instantly is, it's sped everything up. Like, I mean, they
Well,
teleported
Rand
there.
can. Only Rand.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, what a way to end this episode as well, hey? Like, significant moment there with Matt, like getting those memories back, getting his Foxhead medallion, and fulfilling the prophecy from the Aelfin by dying.
Yeah. And that Foxhead medallion,
We suspect.
Yeah, that Foxhead also saves him from the golem later on, doesn't it? They can't. He
It's the only thing that harms the golem.
Yeah. Just remember that now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So did you guys remember to pick favorite moments?
Sure did.
Okay, Vil, you seem eager. Let us know.
My favorite moment is not one single event, but over the last 4 chapters that we stretched, it is the friendly interaction between Matt and Rand again. Their little smiles in the stone to each other, like you said, like, watch this shit that I'm going to do now. Them on the horses, them back in the waist together, like all their little interactions is even Matt saying to Rand, like, hey, have you gone mad already? Like, go drink water.
Yes.
Just like,
you're not gonna do something crazy, are
you? It's that by far is like my favorite moments of all. It's just like to see them from the harshness that they went through, and Matt getting really sick, and then Matt sort of wanting to break away from him, like, fuck, this guy's mad, like, we need to go. And now to them just being that buddy back, and Matt with him, doing it with him, having his back.
Yeah.
And
it's awesome.
My favorite stretch by
I
far.
love it as well.
Same.
Like, I think I mentioned it every time I saw a little hint of it. I'm like, oh, look, look, they're still friends. Yeah, love it. How about you, Joe?
Also Matt related, but not a stretch, a single moment of him whipping out all of those knives in front of the wise ones and making a pile in front of him.
That's an honorable mention from me.
That is. Well, it's my favorite. it's
It's so great. It's like such a cliche that like so many movies have adopted that scene by now, but this is one of the better applications of it. The fact that even the Aiel are impressed by his, like, what is it, like a mound? It's like a pile of knives.
Pile of blades in his sleeves,
even has
in his
one
back,
down his
back,
the nape of his neck,
boots, all over the show.
It's so great. I think mine is probably no surprise. It is the whole chapter from Moraine's point of view. I just love that insight. That whole thing is such a, I know I keep saying it, but it's such a rare glimpse into her thinking. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm almost like I'm bracing for her disappearance already. So I'm sort of, to any little extra bit I can get, I'm lapping it up.
Luckily, I am not going to feel as tormented by it happening, because I know it is coming. Because it really shook my foundations when it happened, when I read it the first time.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am. She's gone for a long time.
Yeah, many books.
Yeah.
I think she only comes in book 12 or 13.
Is it the Towers of Midnight she comes back? Don't remember what book number that is.
I'm thinking book 11. Isn't that Knife of Dreams? I can't remember.
Knife of Dreams is book 11. It's after Knife of Dreams.
All right. So
then maybe it's 12. Towers of Midnight. Another honorable mention from me is Lan sort of low-key supporting Rand. You know, just I like that bond between them as well. Yeah. Lan is very much like a surrogate father figure for Rand. Rowan wrote in his favorite moment was Matt calling the Earthling a son of a goat.
It's very Matt-centric favorite moments.
Totally. I mean, I predict that a lot of favorite moments are going to be Matt, because Matt does bring like a sense of levity to what is sometimes terrifying and hectic story. And Matt's interactions with everyone around him are often comical and rad. Like, he does cool shit and he does it in a cool way. And I feel like even Brandon Sanderson's interpretation of Matt. And Joe, you said that some people have not liked it. I feel like Brandon turned it up to 11.
That's what other people didn't like, was that it got so
ridiculous.
Love it.
I love it.
The more Matt, the better.
So, to our listeners, send your favorite moments or your comments or your theories. Send them to us to read out here, to chew on, to incorporate in our own theories. We are, as you can hear, supremely excited to add any kind of cool thought or theory or just idea to what we already hold as canon in our own heads. But also send any kind of commentary, like if we made a mistake, which, we do all the time. If you guys send in the callbacks, I don't have to research them. So please, for the love of Mike, send in the callbacks.
Now, careful now. I might send in anonymous through the website. Callbacks, play it up.
Irrelevant. Send it. And I don't have to research it.
Thank God, Billy will be helping you out. Whatever.
I'm more inclined to believe it if it doesn't have your name on it.
No, don't be like that now.
And like I said last time, like if you're listening to this episode and you are not up to date with what we've done, still send in your callbacks. We call back to things all the time. We call back, we call forward. We're all about correcting ourselves, and we are certainly not precious about it, because let's face it, we can't be. Let's then talk about, I should probably tell people how to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Send us your callbacks or your comments or your theories or whatever, any comms you want. You can just tweet us at Blood and Ash Pod. There are some social media links in our episode description. Those should be hyperlinks. So I don't know if I ever say this, but you can literally just scroll down to the episode description and click on them, and it'll take you to Twitter or Facebook or to the website where you can leave a comment, and that'll come to my inbox. So please do that. Next time on Blood and Ashes, we are going to be doing chapters 25, obviously, because we're not going to skip any chapters or go back, but up to and to the end of chapter 30, which again is 6 chapters. Purely by coincidence, still following the 100-page average for an episode. But those chapters are called The Road to the Spear, which I'm assuming is some flashback histories of the Aiel. And chapter 30 is called Beyond the Oak.
No idea.
What the fuck could that mean? No, you guys look perplexed.
Beyond the Oak.
Oak? Is that even a thing here?
Well, maybe it's a
yes.
Loel thing and a Ogier through the ways thing.
That's what I'm thinking as well. As soon as I heard that, it's Ogier.
I, for one, actually enjoy when I can't predict what's going to happen. Right? Like this seems interesting to me. But on that interesting note, I will now finally, after another marathon recording session, say my fond farewell to you guys. I will see you guys next time, and cheers to the listeners.
Now go away, or I will taunt you a second time.
It won't be an episode without a Monty Python reference.
No, it will not.
One chow how.
One chow how to you too.